So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? If none, do I have a vote? All those in favor? Okay.
Wait a minute. We were approving the agenda, right?
That's right.
So does that mean that
We're approving the consent
we're
calendar.
accepting the finance and the project log with no questions?
Approving the agenda.
No, excuse me,
Consent.
excuse me, don't know. So aren't we going to move any of those things, or we're just going to approve them blind? Excuse me, did I?
Well, I can't answer that for sure, but I asked Ernesto about 20 questions that I'd like him to talk to when he gives his.
So I move to
department
approve,
head.
I move to approve the agenda. I would like to move the project log and finance to discuss.
Mr. Chair, if I may too, I will have a number of things, the laundry list you gave me to answer during my comments. But before I do that, I'd like to bring in SGE
Okay.
to do the driver report. We don't need to have it sit here.
So that
know.
means that you would like to move the order of the agenda around.
That's correct. So
Okay.
I'll have them present the dry rot
Okay,
report. and
so
then-
now you have,
Do I have a motion to rescind the amendment?
no,
The approval?
I said to approve the amended, then I asked to amend the agenda. We're going to amend the agenda by relocating the items, which is Ernesto, and moving the other two things to discussion. That needs a second, and then you need a vote. Second.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Good for you, Steve. Do we have any more discussion? Do you want to move anything else off of you? Okay. All right. All those in favor of the
Amended.
the motion as amended?
I think so.
All right. Unanimous?
I'm done.
Thank you. All right. Approval, I'm going to go to number 4, the approval of the meeting report for June 4th, 2018.
I so
Have a
moved.
motion?
I move, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Do we have any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, Roy?
On page 4 of 5, up at the top, first paragraph, second sentence, still will order. I think somebody means staff. I read it.
So is it a
Staff?
grammatical change, or is it a
That's
substance change?
staff. It's a typo.
Staff, not still.
So
It's a-
it's just a,
Typo.
No, it's not a typo. It's, needs to be changed to staff.
but it's a grammatical, so it's a grammatical change.
But
type
unless
of
they're
change.
moving the stills out of the,
Right.
Clubhouse 3.
all right.
Clubhouse 4.
Clubhouse 4, okay, right.
Okay,
Arts
so-
and crafts, right.
So the change did not change the substance of the
Right.
minutes, it just was a grammatics type of thing.
Okay. Any other items? If not, have a vote. All those in favor, approval? Okay, unanimous. Chair's remarks.
Attend the president's.
Let's see what I want to say. I want to welcome SG&E here to talk to us today. And Ernesto, did you want to let us go through member comments before we had them present?
Let's do member comments, and then before my department head update, I'll introduce SGE, and then we'll do my department updates.
Okay. And I'd also like to I'd like to welcome former board member Dave Finley, who is an integral part of going after dry rot in the community. And I'm glad you're here, Dave. I think we all are, and so welcome. So you just keep interfering with my train of thought here, and I haven't got a single train of thought here. So that's the end of Chairman's remarks. I'd like to open it up for member comments for items not on the agenda. Lynn, I can see you coming. Right, unless you're on vacation, I knew you'd be here. Is there a microphone on?
All right. I'd like to start with a couple positive comments.
I'm not going to have any negative ones, but I wanted to start with a couple positive. One thing, the Breezeway project, I'm very happy with the way it's coming along. It just really looks nice. I just wish that was my building was the pilot. That's all I'm saying. I had a plumbing emergency Saturday night, and gosh, security came really quick, and plumbing did a great job. So I just wanted to say, it's good to have staff like that. Really good to have staff like that. A couple of things one thing I also want to put on the future agenda that we don't want to ever forget, is the replacement of the floors, the tiles in the mailroom. I never see that anywhere, and you might have that somewhere in your strategic plan. I don't know. But we need to consider keeping that open because people are always asking about it. And I know I'm thinking about it, but I want you to think about it. The other thing, Bill, a couple weeks ago, and I don't remember was the budget meeting or what, you told me that you were having a special meeting on the dryers, talking about the purchase of the dryers and all that. And then you kind of get back to me, and I never heard back from you. So that's...
We did have the special meeting, and I apologize for not getting back to you because my
I'm
memory is
wondering,
going.
what are they doing? What are they doing?
Me?
I'm wondering all the time, what are you doing? Because
We're
I haven't
talking.
heard from you.
Okay. Do you want me to answer you now?
Well, no, I got one more thing.
Well,
Oh, okay.
It's your meeting. You go
Yeah,
ahead.
there's an item about dryers. It's item number 9 in today's agenda.
But
Huh? It's tough to know what you're doing at any given time.
but that item,
I think that what the discussion today was going to be about setting the rate, the cost for the drying cycle, because we've given you several reports on this, so I think that that's going to be the discussion, but at that time, it may be appropriate for you to answer any questions that Lynn may have.
okay, because my question is about the purchase of the dryers. Okay. The other question I have, Rosemary, I know you're doing a great job, but I have a question. I'm really been concerned because I haven't heard anything since we had our meeting, our rec room subcommittee meeting. And I know you asked maintenance to give you a report on how we could bring the rec rooms up to standards. And I'm concerned because I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what the cost might be. So I want to be involved in where we go with that. If you do have something, could you share that, please?
I'll answer when all of the comments are
Okay.
done.
And I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, any directors would like to respond to the items that Lynn brought up?
Well, being that I would do, we had a meeting regarding the laundry, and we decided that we were going to go ahead and buy them with the platforms. The basic thing is we also decided, so it was really a financial meeting, that we could not double wham the residents, because why should we just say, okay, all the people who live in 3-story buildings, your assessment's going up really a lot? Because now you have to pay the assessment, and you also have to pay for the dryer. So we went in and we changed the numbers, which will be out in the budget. We changed the numbers as the entire community will share in the purchase of equipment, which we do for the elevators. And we have lowered, there's no more money being allocated to the specialist, not the special assessment, surcharge, thank you. The surcharge for, there'll be no more surcharge. So in technicality, we're probably down about $3 a month, or $3 or $4 a month, which in my view at least covers 2 loads of dry a week, and we'll go over the amount. So we didn't want to we certainly didn't want to turn it into a profit center, but we wanted to turn it into a, because this is a shared cost community, and why are we asking for the people in the 3-story buildings to have more of a share of the cost, So we decided that, so we gave the numbers we really had to give the numbers to Betty. And now we're going to decide, I already have in my mind that it's going to be 50 cents for 30 minutes, but Ernesto might have some other ideas, so that's what we were going. But again, we are not going towards installation until the end of the year, because we don't want the people to be paying a surcharge and to be paying for the drawing. So Ernesto has to work that out. So we've gone to Betty on that. And now to answer your question about the rec rooms. It was a little bit challenging to get the reports out in the manner in which we wanted it. But we do, I still haven't gotten the final details from Brad. I think that if we want to do everything that needs to be done, we're going to really deplete what is in the account for this year. So I really believe that we have to make a decision. Do we want to go ahead and get everything done and deplete the account and then have to build it up? Because we do have to increase it from $1. I don't know to what level that we have to increase it, but they really did work on it. I mean, I had Brad working on it too. So that's where we are. So the surcharge for the rec rooms is going to go up some amount, but I don't know if we could do all the work and deplete everything that we have in the account, because we have to build the account back up, and we're certainly not going to be raising it. I mean, I raised it $1 and I had to buy a ticket to move out of town, so I don't want to be raising it more than $1 because I'd have to use the ticket. So, so we have to make some decisions. We could make those, and Friday, is it not this Friday, next Friday, I think, is the budget review, and that's very important and very important. So we should go over it ahead of time. Before then, we'll set up a time. All right? Does that answer your question? A little, yeah. Yeah, we'll set up a time, we'll set up a time to talk. All right. Okay. Is that good, Bill? Is that okay?
That's good with me. Anybody else have any comments or anything? I just want to say to you, Lynn, you need to beat the bushes for people who live in those 3-story buildings to plan on running for this board when we have our election this summer. Okay, thank you. That said, if there's no further comments, I'm going to turn this meeting over to the department head for updates and for introductions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am going to defer my updates till after SGE completes their presentation. I'd like to, at this time, introduce SGE, Mr. Steve Gordon and Eugene Gordon. They're both PhDs, structural engineers. They've done extensive work with our community. They are involved in quite a bit of the structural analysis that is required for us to modify, repair, change structural members in the community when we find them to be dry rotted. There's quite a bit of items that we take care of ourselves, fascia boards, things that don't require, that are not structural elements. But whenever we have something that is structural in nature, we call on to SGE to do that analysis for us. So they're very, very familiar with our community. They work with contractors that we hire to do the repairs, so they know that process as well. So they were engaged and awarded a contract to SGE to do a comprehensive study that we could perhaps use as a guide in the future to address other buildings in the community that are similar in nature to the ones that we selected. We selected a number of buildings, 20 buildings, and these buildings are, there's about 700 models actually that are represented by this 20 building sample. So while their findings, and he'll talk in depth about that, are, it's kind of bittersweet because they found very little dry rot in the buildings that they addressed. And I was, in a way, I had hoped to find a lot so that we could actually have a really good sample, but they did not. So it's very likely that as we move forward with this program and we examine other buildings, that we'll find larger quantities than we found in these buildings. There doesn't seem to be a rhyme or reason in many instances as to whether a dry rot occurs in one model as it does in the next model. But again, the body of work that they've done, and we're looking at about 5 inches of work that included all of their inspections, all of their analysis, They actually retained the services of a professional estimator to come up with estimates for us. Because one of the things that we did, and I'll talk a little bit more about it during my report, which I'm going to give as item number 11. But before I do that, I'd like to get SGE up, to come up and make their presentation, and we get that out of the way. And then when we get to item 11, I'll talk a little bit more about where we go from here and what our recommendation is moving forward. So with that, I'd like to have Steve and Eugene come up.
Good afternoon. I'm Eugene Gordon. I really appreciate the opportunity to address all of you. We addressed a subset of this board, I think the committee, at the start of the project when we were awarded it. And we kind of outlined our vision for how we wanted to execute the plan that Ernesto's team wanted to see done. And we spent the rest of the time, we spent the time in the last few months filling in those blanks and executing that plan, and that's what we'd like to share with you today. I'm here with Steve Gordon, our principal. I'm a vice president here, and we're just kind of bounce back and forth between the two of us as we worked both on the project and our team. The best way that we do these presentations is for you guys to interrupt us at any point with any question that you might have. We're happy to answer it and clarify it at the time. That way we don't have to sit on any questions, and we're talking about it in the context of whatever slide we're on. So just a little bit of background. About who we are. We have 25 years of experience just as a company. Steve's experience is far more extensive than that. But this is what we've done. This is what the company has started out doing. And this is where our expertise lies. This is where our expertise is. We've been looking at residential structures and commercial structures since the very beginning. Oh, can you not see?
You have it on your screens?
Just now? Let me see. How about now?
Can you all see that?
Okay. There you go. Okay. Oh, there's another screen. So I think part of the reason, if I was to guess, and based on our conversations with Ernesto and his team of why our team was selected, like Ernesto mentioned, we are here in the community once every 2 weeks at least, if not more than that. We're out here looking at a variety of different buildings for almost any engineering issue that you come across, and in particular, dry rot issues between prior to paint programs and the maintenance department and things like that. So that's, we definitely applied that experience that we have with the different building construction types, with the different models, with the different arrangements to these 20 specific buildings that we looked at. And that was really important too, as we'll get to kind of paint in some of the questions that we had. I have some background on dry rot. Would you like to hear some background on dry rot, or can we get to the results? It's totally up to you. Okay, all right. So the scope of work, we were going to look at these models, do inspections of various areas that we identified as having the potential for dry rot. We investigated them from a range of visual inspection to destructive investigation in some of them, where we identified a need for that. We tried to minimize the invasiveness, the inconvenience to the community as much as possible, while maximizing the amount of information that we could get from our investigation. So that was the goal. And here are the properties that we looked at. You can see they're pretty well distributed. We had a variety of different constructions, different models, different amount of levels, and I think that was selected intentionally by Ernesto's team. We also had good documentation for a portion of them about original construction details, which are really important because we can only really see what we see unless we open up the walls, and we try to minimize the amount that we did that. These buildings were supposed to be representative of of a much larger subset. So these 20 were supposed to be representative of about 700, and there were various different construction types, like we talked about. And these were our tools. We were trying to apply very tried and tested methodology to get a comprehensive look at the dry rot we were encountering. We had a probe that allowed us to go make a small hole within the walls of some of these structures to get in and look at what's going on inside the walls. Is the building paper intact? Do we have any evidence of moisture infiltration? Do we have evidence of dry rot? And we did that throughout the homes as needed. And it made patching very easy, and it also gave us complete information, which I think was a really good benefit to the residents too, as we didn't want to inconvenience them either. And you can see some of these pictures. You can see that this is the blue pipe is how we enter the probe into there, and the photographs with the date stamps on them is the image quality that we saw with some evidence of moisture infiltration. So most of the investigations were done this way and visually. On one of the properties, we did have to get into destructive testing, where we opened up some balconies and some breezeway beams. Some were done preemptively because of experience at other similar types of structures, and then some of them were done because we actually saw evidence of dry rot damage, but could not see anything with the camera enough to make a determination. So, and you can see that this photograph is one of the destructive ones. So, 5%, one of the, no, not too bad. We color-coded the damage. That same map that you saw on the previous slide, we color-coded some of the damage, whether it's no damage at all, that's the green ones, the green dots, all the way up to structural, the red dots. And you can kind of see it was distributed throughout. And so here are the results. We had 55% had decay of non-structural, what we're calling non-structural, which is architectural, fascia boards, things that are not part of the lateral or vertical load resisting system. These are elements that we would imagine would experience some of this, as they're usually exposed to the elements. And 25% had actual structural decay-related damage. So it's much less than we thought. I think it's much less than Ernesto thought. And 20% of these properties had nothing that we could identify in terms of dry rot. It's important, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about it in a little bit. It's important to understand that our scope was limited to these 20 plus the information we know about these types of models from other investigations. So what we were trying to do is limit the unknowns, the uncertainty we had about what kind of dry rot we were going to see throughout the entire community from a very relatively small representative sample size. So these results, as you can see, here we kind of, instead of doing it on a map, you can kind of see which ones had non-structural versus structural. The red column is structural, and you can see it's fairly limited in what we saw. And once we got into what the actual structural, non-structural repairs, we went into designing full construction drawings that can be permitted for these structures, for these types of repairs. Ernesto has those, and those can actually be taken for permit and used for repair. But the primary deliverable here, other than those drawings in this report, was also a understanding, okay, well, how much would it cost to actually make these repairs for these 20 buildings? And we did come up with those repair estimates on a variety of levels. We looked at overall cost on a per building basis. We tried to compare them across the 20 buildings and see, depending on the various structures, how those repair costs changed. We also looked at total construction cost, total repair cost on a per building basis, which also gave us, I think, made it a little bit easier to go out for bid and for contractors to understand, how do I tackle this building versus all 20. And that estimation framework is actually the same framework that will assist Ernesto's team in the RFP process to actually get contractors on board. It's essentially our same estimates with all the quantities and pricing blanked out. We know what needs to be, what elements are part of those repairs. Now they just need to fill in those details with their own costs. So that was also part of the deliverables, and that we provided as well. So any questions so far? Yeah.
Okay, for the non-structural, I assume that's what Ernesto and in-house is going to do. And you just capitalize on the structure?
No. We're going to put the whole project out to bid. So whoever
okay.
bids on this project will
Total.
do non-structural, structural, anything that's identified by SGE and the plans and specs. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question. Did you ask these folks to look at where we had K-coat in the community, where they had come through and put K-coat over that, over the sides of those walls in the carports and some of the homes, some of the manors?
They looked at everything within the 20 buildings that they inspected.
Okay.
So-
Were there any with K-coat on them?
I don't believe so. I don't believe
okay.
we
All right.
encountered any of it, yeah.
Thank you.
And you can see the model types here, and that's part of the point of this slide. You can see the different kind of models that we had here for the different structures. So it's really important, I think, when talking about results, to also talk about limitations. We can't provide a full, clear picture of everything that we're going to encounter across the 700 buildings that these 20 represent, but we can drastically limit the uncertainty associated with tackling the repair of these buildings in this mutual. So we know that there are some buildings that we saw of these 20 that did not exhibit damage that we were expecting to see, and I think Ernesto was expecting to see. But at the same time, our experience in the community and our experience with these same models has shown that we know if we looked at the same model somewhere else, the same model in a different location, it's going to exhibit some of this, at least one of them. And so we brought in some of that experience into this. So we know that the identical model, even if within these 20 doesn't have it, there may be some of that. And so we need to keep that in mind as we go through the RFP process. And one of the deliverables that we have to address some of that is that we provided a per repair price. So if a certain building doesn't have a certain repair that it needs, then the contractor won't bid on it. But if it does, then Ernesto has an idea of pricing, roughly ballpark. And that helps address some of that uncertainty that may be encountered when you extrapolate from 20 to 700. Obviously, these are forensic investigations. These are as-built. These were built a long time ago, and we can't see everything. So those are kind of some of the inherent limitations of forensic work. And it also depends on the pricing that we provide. It also depends on if you're bidding out 5 at a time versus 20 at a time. Obviously, contractors can have economies of scale that can be passed on to the board, passed on to the community, versus doing 1 or 2 at a time. The other thing is, because of the limitations, because of the limited damage that we saw, material quantities don't scale down to 0 either. So, if you're buying splash blocks or you're buying lumber, you're going to inherently buy, if you're repairing a few, you're going to buy a lot more lumber and get much better deals on that. So those things affect pricing as well. And we looked at this as if you could do it either way, and we provided pricing accordingly. But the point is that the findings that we have 75% certainty in the findings that we have for these 20 buildings. But what that translates to is that we reduced the uncertainty of what you were going to encounter for these types of buildings from 100 down to 25. And I think that's part of the value of what this report provided and this work provided. So from an analysis perspective, Steve, do you want to talk about the analysis? Okay. So from an analysis perspective, we didn't see a comprehensive pattern. We as engineers constantly look for patterns. Can we find out what makes a certain element susceptible, or a certain construction type, or a certain architectural detail or structural detail? We didn't see a global evidence of a global problem in any of the models. What we did see was localized damage in a variety of places that we've identified. And in some places, that damage, we looked for it, we thought it would be there, and like I said, it didn't exist. So we didn't see a lot of correlation with, oh, all buildings in a certain location were all susceptible to this one issue. Or we didn't see all the buildings that face south all have this problem. We didn't see that. What we did see is buildings that we saw conditions that are more susceptible to dry rot damage are going to have more dry rot damage, exposed wood, things like that. And I'm going to cover those. So we didn't see any damage in like systemic flaws in design or flaws in construction, just maybe details that need some modification and regular maintenance and upkeep. And some of those things may not have been available at the time that these buildings were built. And since then, a variety of these models have already implemented some of these things. So specifically, when you had direct contact of lumber with concrete or masonry, we saw this a few times. You can see it in this column at the top photo. Here, you're going to experience deterioration. Just, it's not a good detail. And these are things that the industry has already identified. We saw it throughout, and we identified it there too. We also saw, it's not just direct contact with lumber, with masonry or concrete. We saw on some of the ramp beams for some of these buildings, we saw direct contact between the lumber and the soil and the grade. Obviously, it's a big source of moisture, and that's going to cause problems for the ramp beams. The ramp beams were a particularly interesting challenge because on some of them, they are the primary exit path for these buildings. So deterioration to the ramp beams in construction can actually wreak havoc for the homeowner. So, and I think the contractors with whom we've done work outside of this project have come up with ways to deal with that, and our details help with that too. And obviously just exposure to moisture, places where you had inadequate drainage, you didn't have, you had drainage directly onto, directly beside a structure, there you're going to see more moisture and more issues. We had lumber in undrained spaces. So enclosed balconies, anywhere that you're going to have a lack of ventilation or a lack of places for moisture to enter but not leave, those are going to be inherently more susceptible. So we had balconies that were enclosed with stucco. And we knew that we were going to encounter some of those. Those were some of the destructive investigations that we had to do. This was 2353 Via Mariposa. And you can see one of the balconies here. This is moisture infiltration with nowhere to go. That's what you see in the top photo.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
If you just put in small vents, does that do anything to help?
Yes, it does.
Well, you have to have cross ventilation, not one vent.
Right, it's akin to in your house opening one window versus opening two windows, and you'll actually have it blow through. You want it to blow through rather than just ventilate by itself.
Yeah, you want to create a draft through
Yeah.
so that it can dry. So that's many of the details. One of the things that is really important to realize here is that SGE has really provided us many upgraded details. A lot of the architectural details that were used on our buildings, while they may be beautiful, they really were not very practical, and they've caused a lot of this dry rot because they trap the moisture, they don't have adequate ventilation, they have a lot of exposed wooden members to the weather, they have glue lamb beams, which is a series of pieces of plywood glued together, exposed to weather. I mean, things that, well, yeah, there's warping, there's all kinds of problems with it. So while it's beautiful architecturally, it's just not really practical. So one of the values in the work that SG has done is that they provided a lot of upgraded details for us. And anything that we're going to be repairing with these 20 buildings, they've given us the details for it. So this is a repetitive process. As we encounter more dry rot in other facilities, this details are valid, and we can continue to use them throughout. So
Yeah, so it actually has two benefits, this approach. One is that, and we see it with our work in both on the maintenance side and with Ernesto's group, we see benefits in design. We don't have to keep coming up with details and charging you guys for details to come up with repairs. That's one. But that's realistically, engineering costs are a small piece of this. But contractor familiarity with proper detailing and proper implementation of those things, those costs are also passed on to the community, and those are really important too. So having a library of reliable details for this is really important. I think one of the benefits. The other thing that we ran into. And by the way, to answer your question about ventilation, the best thing to do is, and it's not always feasible, is to not enclose it. We have a variety of balconies in even the same model buildings, some of which have enclosed balconies and some of which don't. And the ones that are enclosed are inherently going to be more susceptible. Of the balcony, well, we're talking about the balcony itself, not necessarily when they enclose the, when the residents ask to enclose their balconies, but obviously that has the same or similar issues.
Yeah. Could I ask a stupid question? Maybe I'm new. What's your definition, the difference between structure versus non-structure? For example, all those examples you showed, are they considered non-structure or structure?
Right, it's a good question. So when we say non-structural, we're talking about architectural elements. So oftentimes you'll see exposed wood beams sticking out as part of the architectural style. They don't serve any structural purpose as part of the force resisting system, but they do have aesthetic elements to them. They're meant to make the structure look better. They don't carry load.
So just to make it very clear, a structural element is one that if you remove it, portion of your house will fall down.
Right.
A non-structural detail is something that you can remove and the house will still stand, like the eaves or the fascias or a window. Those are non-structural elements of the house.
So those are two examples you showed are
These are
considered
structural. These are structural, right.
These are
Because the
structural
beam
details.
That's carrying the roof on one, and that is a balcony on the other. So if you remove those, you don't have a balcony
Okay,
or a roof.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
I noticed on my manor, they have a trellis, and
Mhm.
they capped it with the metal flashing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that direct metal flashing on wood? It's a wood trellis.
Right.
Should they put spacers in there between the flashing and the wood?
So I think we actually have a detail we're going to show in here. But yes, so usually there's a separation. They're called gapped, and there's usually a gap between those elements that help with some of the deterioration.
So
Yeah, but
that's,
it's the same issue. It's ventilation.
but that's actually a very, very good question, because a lot of people think that you can just cap a beam and you're done. But if you're trapping water, if you're creating an area where the air is not going to go through, then you're creating propensity for dry rot. The same goes with epoxy paints. A lot of people think that, well, if a beam is exposed to weather, just epoxy paint it. Water won't get to it. No, what you're doing is you're sealing, enclosing the beam, and it doesn't allow it to breathe. Wood has to breathe in order to be able to remain viable and strong.
We did come up with recommendations, and the report does outline recommendations for those causes that we saw. And a lot of it is, essentially don't do that, right? And have better detailing. There are other things to use, though. Obviously, using pressure-treated wood or, where appropriate, because there are downsides to doing that, and you can't do that everywhere. Treating lumber, exposed lumber in particular, with products that exist now that can protect it, not on the same level as pressure treating, but have a very reliable performance for exposed lumber. This is a picture of copper green, which is it's available at Home Depot, and you can treat lumber before you paint it, and it will protect it a bit longer. So we've seen a lot of success with that. All of our details for the community in this project and outside include some of this when dealing with exposed lumber. It's good. Hot dip galvanizing structural components also helps. Obviously, anything that's going to be exposed to the elements, whether it's sprinklers, it doesn't really rain, but when it does, hot dip galvanizing will help with some of that. When you saw that detail of the column coming straight down, that's going to deal with that. And this is the separating lumber from the concrete and masonry with the metal bases. This is just a standard product you can buy off the shelf that has a gap and inherently will provide some ventilation and keep the lumber off of the concrete. You can see you had asked about ventilation. Here are some ventilated balconies, or I think these are roof eaves. But ventilation helps. The more ventilation, the better that you can get, and cross-ventilated and spaces. That's vital. Same with separating structural elements from the grades, from the concrete. Those obviously always help as well. One of the things that we also run into is the balcony railings that are either top mounted or mounted on the face of the balconies. We don't want to anchor the guardrail posts into stucco framing, especially from the top. That tends to result in moisture infiltration through that connection. So what you see throughout the community, and I think it's been a community-wide project, is to start moving the balcony railings to the face, and that to the face of the balcony, and that's helped quite a bit as well. You can further make that detail even worse if you have a top-mounted balcony and it's enclosed, right? So that's like the worst of all worlds, and we've seen plenty of that. But I think that's something that's on its way out, as we kind of get to it and identify it throughout the community.
Are any of those photographs a top-mounted guardrail post?
The one on top is.
One on the third floor?
The one on the very top floor is top mount. So this is the same building, obviously. The one on the top, this is 2353 Via Mariposa.
Goes up to, I can't see.
Yeah, here's a sample of both, and even if you can't see it, the top one has actually the railing mounted on top, and the second floor has the railing mounted on the side. Yeah, and it
Right.
looks like, just from the color, it looks like the one in the second floor might have been worked on. Apparently, it had dry rot, so they moved the railing to the outside. But that's a much better detail than poking a hole through the top and allowing that water to penetrate into it.
And part of it is also drainage, right? Some of these balconies don't drain off the front of it. They don't have the slope needed, and water just pools. And when it pools, it finds its easiest path through, right through that fastener, or right through that connection.
And you notice on the top picture that there are house plants.
Right.
And people are watering those.
That's right. So that water just pools there, and stucco allows water to move in and out. So
are we saying that the ones on the second floor aren't correct, though?
no, the ones on the second floor is actually a better detail than
Yeah.
the ones on top. So you want to mount the railing on the face on the outside, like you see it mounted here, whereas the one on the top actually is mounted through the deck. So it gives a place for water to penetrate through there. So the best thing is to remove that, make that repair, and mount the railing to the face on the outside.
Well, that's good news, because they came and fixed my railing, and that's what they did. So
Yeah.
you're moving in the right direction.
Quick question for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Correct. Correct.
The balcony.
Right.
Right.
And generally,
Of
they
course.
seal the balconies
Got
on
it.
the top, right? And they seal them well, but it doesn't
Yeah.
matter because they run a fastener through it
Got
to
it.
hold the guardrail, and that results.
It's very clear.
Yeah.
I just,
And how are most of our buildings done? Like this?
we have a combination. There's many of them were actually put on the top, And as we move forward and we make repairs and we replace damaged railing, we move it to the outside. But again, these are all the details that need to be addressed in the long run to prevent moisture intrusion. One of the things that is very prevalent in our community that I've noticed, I actually noticed it before they started working on it, but they also identified it in a couple locations, is that our downspouts, even though they have a splash pad at the bottom of the building, they drain right next to the building. You
Yes.
never want to do that. Never want to do that. That's the worst detail that you can have. You want to take the water and send it as far away from the building as possible, because otherwise you soak the ground that the building is relying on to actually support the loads, and that's why we have a lot of settlement and a lot of leaning of walls, because you soak that ground, it becomes soft, and then the loads push that wall aside. So that's something that we need to work on. We need to figure out how to get the water out further from the buildings. And that's prevalent throughout the community. As you walk, you'll see it everywhere.
Didn't we just recently enact a regulation in MNC that requires us to go much farther out now?
I think we did, but it's, you'll see it throughout the community. Water is just down, splashing right next to the building, right next to the foundation.
It's also a really good example of something where with dry rot or with any kind of structural repair, it's very limited in cost. You know, it doesn't cost a lot to implement, but it has a major effect on long-term maintenance and reliability of the structural performance.
Okay, changing it just a little bit, especially on first floors of buildings, people that let plants grow right next or against the exterior wall, does that allow for wicking to go in through the stucco?
You're talking about on the ground floor? Or
Yeah, and plants up against the exterior wall.
I think it's not.
They grow on it,
Yeah, it's
actually.
not so much the plants, it's the watering of the plants. If you're watering the plants and you're making puddles right next to them, right next to the building, that invariably is going down to the foundation. It's going down on the ground that the building's relying to be strong and dry, and you're wetting that. So unless you're watering up against the wall, you shouldn't have any, and there shouldn't be any issues with the wall, with wicking inside the wall. But that's the issue. The issue is you're watering there next to the building, which you shouldn't really be doing that.
But also roots, depending on how the plants are planted, and you'll get things next to structural elements like walls. You'll also get root issues where the roots upheave some of the structures.
Right.
Attach yourself to the wall, growing up.
Well, actually, Third has a policy against growing vines on the walls. Yeah. Yeah, but that's a major issue, the drainage, taking the drainage away from the building, that's very important. It does not contribute to a lot of the dry rot because it happens to be below grade, but it's a problem with your foundations.
And we've seen movement. We've seen foundation movement with where parking garage walls, right? And we've seen things like that experiences as a result of inadequate drainage. And so just a couple more recommendations. Positive drainage, like we talked about. Imitation wood products have become more popular. They've also decreased in price somewhat, although not very much. But the performance has been very good, and obviously they're not subject to these same issues. And also, the last thing, and I think this is vital, is resident observation of structural damage in their communities is really, really important as a data point for identifying bad details, because day in and day out, you don't have consultants there. You have residents who live and regularly see minute changes in their own homes or in their own structures. That's really important. So them reporting observed signs of dry rot issues also adds data points that I don't think would be possible to identify comprehensively on the entire community level any other way. So that's also really important. The project deliverables, I kind of talked about it. We had this report. There's 2 copies there. That's not one report. There's 2 copies there. Well, it's half of one report. We also had project specifications for the repairs that were also not in there. It's another binder full of engineering specifications. Repair estimates, contractor bid form, like I talked about, which is similar to our estimates but with blanks, and the project manual. So just to wrap things up, we didn't see global damage. We saw localized damage in these 20 buildings. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. We didn't see anything that can, okay, well, this is our policy from now on, so we'll take care of everything. It's more of a localized, identifying these details, identifying exposed lumber, proper ventilation, proper drainage. These are the things we saw. And regular maintenance combined with quality repair details, like the library that we've come up with and provided in this report, I think will result in much better structural performance in the long term. And finally, oversight. Oversight is really, really important here as well, to keep an eye not only on the structures themselves, but also to keep an eye on the contractors who are implementing some of these things. Our experience in the community and our experience in general doing engineering throughout the U.S. has shown that construction oversight, whether it's Ernesto's team providing owner's representation of making sure that things are implemented correctly, or the city's inspectors making sure that the drawings are implemented correctly, or structural observation, the actual engineer coming out and making sure that things are done according to the drawing, that can go a long way too, because we can design the best repair details in our office, but it doesn't matter if it's not implemented in the field the right way. So that oversight is really, really important and closes the loop on proper structural design.
Yeah, a case in point in that is the recessed area projects that we're implementing right now. There's many details in there that, while they're not very sexy, they will make sure that the walls remain dry, that the buildings remain dry, that the slabs don't leak as much. Placing the weep screed and raising it above the ground, that's a huge detail that will keep that wall dry. Installing, remember we had the conversation about flat drains. Before we have flat drains there, and I said absolutely not. Flat drains clogged, and then the water has nowhere to go. So we installed the dome drains. I mean, that seems like a very minuscule detail, but it nets you big benefits when it comes to water and drainage. So
Are these going to be implemented at your prior to paint?
there'll be, well, the drains, no, the drains are being
The other
implemented
things
with
too.
this. With the, no, the prior to paint program will not address the drains, relocating drains, or cutting stucco and moving it up. Unless we find areas that have dry rot that are obvious, then we'll cut them out and we'll do them correctly. But those are details that are very, very important to keep the moisture away from the buildings.
I have a question. Did you find any dry rot that needed immediate attention? And I assume if you did, you informed Ernesto.
We did. We found it in the Villa Mariposa, the 2353 balconies, where we did identify it. It's an interesting building. That building, we spent a lot of time on that single building because those models are interesting. But that one had a combination of a balcony that needed immediate repair, and those drawings were permitted, and those, actually I had a photograph in there.
Right.
Those are already being implemented, those repairs now.
So anything that we find that's structural damage, and it looks like it's just being held by termites, we immediately have SGE prepared structural drawings. We get them permitted through the city, and we put them out to bid right away.
Great.
So we don't wait on anything like that.
That's good. That's good.
And we tend to err on the side of caution with those kinds of things.
Right.
And our first call is to Ernesto and his team if we identify things. And that was the one place, I think, right? The one place in the 20 buildings that we saw a need for immediate repair. I mean, it wasn't immediate like that same day, things need to be shored up or anything like that. It was immediate in the sense that we should develop these drawings now. These are not hypothetical. Let's get them permitted and out to bid and
You didn't have to go weld the sliding glass door to the balcony shut until you got it fixed.
No. We
okay.
have it elsewhere in the community, but
Yeah, okay.
not in any
All
of
right.
these 20. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, keep going.
More
That
question.
was just my question.
The relationship between the 20 buildings you looked at, the 700 buildings that they represent, and the totality of the buildings in this mutual. What is it, what's the bottom line that we're talking about? You had $331,000.
Yes.
But that was only for 20 buildings.
Correct. So we looked at, we also, in addition to these 20 buildings, brought in, like I mentioned, some of the experience we had with similar buildings, not of these 20. And we knew for a fact that these 20 had, there was some buildings that we looked at that outside of these 20 that didn't experience what these 20 did, and the opposite. So there were things in the, I had a slide in here I can show you. There was a building in this same 2353. So here are two separate buildings, same model. What's the model? Garden Villas with breezeway beams. Here are two separate buildings of the same model. On the right is 2353 Via Mariposa. That was one of the 20. That one, the breezeway beams were fine. We opened it up, everything was okay, especially where you have the roof access hatch. That's what this photo was. On the left is 4007, 4007, I forget the street, but it's 4007. It all had to, the breezeway beams had to be replaced entirely on this one. And the walls. Oh, and the walls, and the entrance, all of the framing around the entrance to the laundry room had to be replaced. We knew about that. We provided estimates for those kinds of repairs that we know you'll encounter, but are not part of these 20. How they scale, so this is part of where we talked about the limitations of forensic investigations. It's hard to scale up to 700 or scale up to the entire community. All you can do is mitigate some of the uncertainty. So what we did was we mitigated the uncertainty about the repairs we saw in and out of these 20 and applied them here. What the contractor is going to encounter when they look at building number 21 is a question. I mean, they may see something that we haven't seen anywhere, and that's a realistic part of the forensic experience.
So is there any thought given not to building number 21, but to building number 701?
Well, I think the thought given to those is developing a framework for dealing with these repairs. So we have a library of repairs that can be applied across to 721 as well. I mean, you don't have to be limited.
Yeah, and that's really the value.
Yeah.
The value is that we have details that if we do encounter dry rot, and we do encounter the structural members that are damaged, we have the details to apply to that. We still will have to assess the building to give a more realistic cost, but it reduces the uncertainty by a great deal, which is part of the problem that you've had in the past. You've gone out to bid on some of these things, and you really don't know what you're going to encounter. And also, contractually, the way you issue contracts, you issue them for a fixed small amount, and then you're back to change order after change order after change order, because when they open it up, they keep finding all kinds of problems. So we've reduced that to a certain extent, but at the same time, contractually, when you go out and you award a contract, you don't want to award it for just the $300,000 that you're estimating. You want to award it for much more, and then control your contract so that you can assign the work to the contractor as they find things, and you get, if you would, proposals for each one of these individual problems, and you control your contract in that manner. So we don't have to continually be back to the board and waste your time and staff time and spend 3 weeks just dealing with processing the change orders.
Part of it also, if I understood the vision, Ernesto's vision for this program in general, was that this is a pilot program with 20 buildings to focus on. And what it does is it sets up a framework for the next 20 or the next 700. And that pilot exists on two levels. That pilot program exists on the engineering level, where we've now developed a procedure for how to investigate these relatively efficiently with minimized disruption to the homeowner. It's also a pilot program from the repair side. So the contractor, you're going to see how this process goes with these 20 and apply those lessons to the next ones. So you're building constantly, and you have that institutional learning that I think everybody wants.
Yeah, it's an iterative process, and I think I mentioned before to you, there's nothing more challenging than actually work on an existing damaged building. I'd rather build you a brand-new building any day than fix an old building, because you don't know what you're going to find. Once you take the walls off, you have absolutely no idea what's inside. They've reduced that uncertainty for us by doing some destructive testing, very minimal, because of the equipment that they purchased to do this work. So, but it's a
Each
probability.
individual item just adds more information to our,
And we
That's-
saw things
that's
that
correct.
you wouldn't expect. You know, we saw things where we have the actual as-built drawing for a building, and it doesn't match what we see in the field at all. You know, material types. You know, we're expecting beams. We see joists. You know, it was entirely different. So things are going to come up, and that's the nature of forensic work.
John and then Kush.
Okay, so we have two things to do. The first thing to do is request bids for the 20 buildings plus the additional 6 buildings. The next thing is, we want you to, we need a proposal from you to project this to 729 buildings, and what it will take to do that. So my question is, are you able to project? You are able to project to 729 buildings, but you've told us in the report there's 1,405 buildings. Can you project to all of the buildings?
Well, I mean, I think anyone can project, right? So like.
Well, you're going to give us a proposal to do that.
Right, but I'm saying it's very important to be able to cushion that with uncertainty, right? So how confident are we in the estimates that you get? I think this was one of the challenges we ran into in the beginning. I think Ernesto, the goal was to kind of just, let's do it all. Let's do it all together and give us a bid to do it all. And what we ran into is it's too big to do that with. And the numbers that you'll get from extrapolating across the entire community may not give you the reliability that you want. What good is having a number that's having a number that in the end is off by a factor of 3? You know, you have a number and there is some satisfaction there, but it may not provide you the reliability that you want. And that's why I think a more piecemeal approach is better.
The other issue associated with this is that we can have, initially, my idea was to have consultants actually do it for every single building in the community. That, obviously, I was not thinking clearly. That's a gargantuous task. And the part of the problem with arriving at numbers for every single structure in the mutual is that you're not going to be able to go out and repair every single structure in any given year. You know, you may want to allocate $1 million a year to do dry rot, but you're not going to allocate $20 million to do all of this within 2 years. So those numbers become stale because dry rot is progressive. So numbers that we come up with this year, in 5 years from now, may be totally different if we go out there and inspect it. So the best approach to this is we have a good basis and we're learning as we actually deconstruct these buildings and make these repairs. So we're gaining the knowledge and we're getting much better at it. So we're more targeted with our approach. But at the same time, ultimately, you have to tackle building by building. And
The
look at
original
each.
plan was is to develop a programmatic approach. We have to do that. We can't just go catch a skid. Over 20 years, over 15 years, but we have to have a plan. How bad is this?
What I can do, based on the work that they've done, is take the numbers that they've arrived at and multiply it out for all those buildings. Is that an accurate approach? Absolutely not.
Of course not.
It's not. It's
but the
not.
more
But the-
buildings you do,
Yes.
the greater knowledge you
Correct.
get. It's like a baseball player's average.
Yes.
In the middle of the season, if a guy goes
Bill.
5 for 5,
Bill.
Right.
it doesn't go up
He has
that
a
high.
question, then I have a question, they have a question.
Also, one more point on that. The chunks, like I was saying, the piecemeal approach, those pieces don't have to stay the same size. So while I don't probably recommend you increase the bite-sized chunk to the entire community, they don't have to be 20 necessarily. So that's you can speed this up somewhat as well.
Hi. I'm not going to ask you about numbers. I'm kind of trying to get back to this 4007.
Yes,
You said you had to replace the entire beam,
yes.
correct?
Yes.
So did you all replace wood for wood or wood for metal or something like that? Or was it?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. With 4007, we were replacing in kind, where we tried to replace in kind. That was the goal, right, Steve?
Right. So, Coach, we right here, we actually replaced glue lam beams. They're beams that are laminated.
Okay.
Because the original detail was somehow faulty.
Okay.
And if those beams are protected and they have proper details to them, they should last the life of the building. It's because the beams were exposed and the detail was poor and water had been allowed to penetrate that the beams deteriorated. But you didn't really need to go to a steel beam, if you would. You could replace it in kind and protect it, and that beam could last the life of the building.
Okay.
And there are some advantages, by the way, to keeping the structural system the same way as it is. There's geometric advantages. It will look different, but also there are advantages with even now you're seeing rising steel prices and things like that can have a drastic price effect. You just may not need it. It may be overkill.
Okay. Just checking, because sometimes you see many buildings just going up
Yeah.
with steel beams and it just goes up in like a few days.
Right, but it tends to be, so residential construction tends still, you'll see some light gauge things, but generally you'll see a lot of wood construction for things under 2-3 stories. And that's usually what they do because it's reliable, it's tested.
But to answer your question, Chris, we've done that. In some instances, we've actually replaced wooden members with steel members.
Okay.
Where it's appropriate.
There's also.
Does that
artificial
make a
pro-
difference in the cost?
It does.
Which
It
is
does.
more?
The steel is much higher.
But lasts much longer?
But,
Not
You
necessarily.
gotta hope.
not necessarily, depends.
really?
If it's not well protected from moisture and rain, it will rust.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Like anything else, a fancier thing is gonna. Yeah.
Okay, got
Right.
it.
So I've got 3 questions coming at you, and then I'm going to draw this to a close. I've got Steve, Rosemarie, and Bunny. Okay?
Okay, would increasing our sample size help as far as determining the gross program?
100%. Every additional data point that you can add gives you a better picture of the whole, but it won't give you everything.
Oh, I know,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, but absolutely, yes. So that's why I'm saying, I think
What would
this
be
is-
the optimum? Maybe 20 more or maybe 35 more?
Well, the question is to what end, right? So the optimal to create a comprehensive library of repair details you'll increase with every additional building. So 20 more will drastically help if you're seeing a big variety of repairs across those 20. If those 20 are exactly the same as these last 20, you're not going to get.
Well, have we touched every model?
Right.
no, we have not. It's 700, and we have about 1,400 buildings in the community. So we could do another sample. I would think that we'd start tackling the ones that we have right now and start going after the models that this 20 represent. And then as we get closer to completing that, we look at doing a similar program to the next 20 representative
Well,
samples.
these first 20, do you consider them the most at risk?
Actually, no, they turn out to be very, very minor. $331,000 to do actually 14 buildings, because 6 of them, they didn't even find any damage at all.
Right.
So
We
we're not-
added some more for for things we didn't see, but even then it wasn't that.
Right, so what we're suggesting, and this will be part of my report, I want to go ahead and wrap up there, is that we consider putting out to bid 20 buildings. The 16 that they found damaged, or 14, and adding another 6 buildings to that, and just go out to bid on that. But we'll talk about that after they're done, so.
I know one of the purposes of doing this also was to try to figure out how much money are we supposed to have in this account? Because when we did the LH21s to the tune of $300,000 in some of the buildings or more, we said, oh my God, the 5 million, 10 million, 20 million is never going to be enough. So we wanted to get a little bit of a feeling as to how exorbitant this ticket would be, and we still don't know. It was a little bit calming that you actually found some that didn't need work. Did you do a random sample, though, when you picked these buildings?
It was fairly random.
Okay.
We select them, the only selection criteria was that we wanted them to be representative of at least half of your buildings in the mutual.
And
So-
do you ever check, did you send them out to any buildings where we had already done work?
No, no.
It would be interesting.
Yeah.
Because this kind of work has been going on for so long that you
Right.
wonder, and before you were here, some of it
Right.
might not have been supervised, some of the contractors ran away,
Yeah.
It might be an interesting
No,
thing
that's
someday.
correct. Our assumption was that whatever was worked on, was in
Right.
Was
decent
worked
shape.
on.
But
Okay.
we did work on, so I think that's where our experience outside of these 20 really shines, because we did see places where repairs had been implemented on similar models, but not on these, and we could see what the difference was. So, that informed some of these repair details that we came up with, because we could see, oh, okay, that repair does work, or no, that had no effect realistically.
So did you advise if you saw anything that didn't look right?
We have repair details in there, absolutely,
Okay.
that address some of those.
Yeah,
Yes.
and they've
Yeah.
done a lot of that. Whenever they
Okay,
go out-
I'll-
when they go out in the community and they find something, in fact, that they found some things that I wish they wouldn't have found, but I'm glad that they found them, because, it costs us money. It costs
Right.
us money, it's another project, but it needs to be addressed. And it's a good thing that they were out there looking at it, and they picked up on it, and they brought it to our attention.
Actually, that's a good point. We actually came across a couple of different things. I can think of one example at least, where we were outside of these 20 buildings. We were out there looking at these 20 buildings and came across something not in these 20, just because you had an engineering team out there anyway, and we saw something. So just the presence of somebody who knows what they're looking at also kind of helps the community too.
Thank you, thank you.
Hey, Bunny?
Question was the question that I had. So I just wanted to see how we were going to go forward after the 20 buildings. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to present and to do this work. We found it fascinating, and we were very proud to present the results that we had. We
Yeah.
appreciate the opportunity.
Well,
Bill,
thank
can
you.
I ask one more question?
That's two more questions.
Two more
You
questions.
said you were cutting it off.
I'm going to give you time limit here, but we've got to move on. We got a lot of
Hey,
work.
I was first.
No, John, you okay? You guys want to arm wrestle?
My question very simply is, Ernesto, are you telling me we're not going to try to project to 729 buildings? That it's too random, the consultant can't do it? I
No,
was planning on issuing an RFP to have him do that, but apparently it's too random.
I think that, no, what I'm suggesting is that the numbers and the details that they've arrived at, I think will be very helpful in us moving forward with additional buildings.
So we'll
beyond-
do the projection.
Beyond that, yes, yeah, exactly. But I don't want to hire SGE to do another 20, another 20, another 20.
No, I want a
another 20.
projection, an extrapolation.
Yeah, and I can give you that, but I'm also going to preface it with a lot of assumptions. I'm going to tell you, you're looking at $10 million, but there's a 30 to 50% either way. So I'm not comfortable giving you a number on the basis of what this gentleman are telling us that they're finding. It's just too random. So,
Okay. James, I'll let you go.
Okay, very quickly, because, you give two examples, 4007 versus 2355. Now,
2353, yeah.
geographically, they're quite a bit different. 4007 is way up in the upper part of the hill, exposed to maybe the sun, to the rain, ventilations, but the 2350 is very low in the flood area. So I wonder, can you see similar thing, 4007, 4006, 4005, all in the high, have a similar problems? Or 2350, are all similar low?
Well, let me-
Buildings are not,
Yeah,
all
let
the
me,
same,
let,
no
let me,
problems?
yeah, let me address that because
Okay.
that was the first question that I asked Steve, Dr. Gordon. I asked him, what are the trends here? If my building is facing west, am I gonna find less dry rot? If my building is up higher, am I gonna find less dry rot? If my building is below another unit, am I gonna find less dry rot? And the answer was no, it's random. We have buildings that face the sun. We have buildings that face different configurations according to the prevailing winds. And it's just random. They couldn't find a trend for me, because that's the first thing engineers look for. We look for trends so that we can, hone our approach. But they were not able to find anything. I let Steve.
Except for trends in detailing, right? Like trends they weren't geographic or geospatial trends. They were trends in, well, this type of detail doesn't work.
Just poor details. Poor details, no matter where you put them, they're poor details.
Right.
They need to be fixed.
Well, thank you very much. It was very, very informative. We appreciate it. Okay. Ernesto, do we want to go back to your department head updates?
I'll try to be as brief as I can. Thank you. So there's a couple things that I wanted, that Bill asked me that I update you on. One of them happened to be the balcony and the breezeway resurfacing. Not the Garden Villa breezeway pilot project. So the breezeway and resurfacing, this program was able to start in May, actually a month earlier than originally anticipated. So today, we've completed 22 of the 56 buildings that we allocated for this year. So we're moving pretty quickly, and all those 22 buildings have already been resurfaced. Another item was the Gardenville lobby renovations, and the question the bill had was the board want to do more. So 10 lobbies were renovated in 2018. Remember, we increased that number actually mid-year, and we completed 2370, 3499, 2353, 2354, 2393, 5517, 969, 2400, 3241, and 2399. As of June 8th, we completed the program, and the average cost of its lobby was about $11,000 apiece. There are 35 lobbies left to fully renovate, and after completion in 2022, if we keep doing 10 at a time, budgeted funds will not be required until 2032. So the question again, that's board's pleasure as to what they want to do, whether they want to add more buildings this year, but that's essentially where we're at right now.
I thought I would ask the question. I got one no out of 9.
You want me to say it louder?
Oh, would that make you 2 votes? I see.
Just, the thing is we have to start, and we talked about this before we start spending any extra money, we have to give some money to the landscape and to the slopes. And Brad said that we were noted by the fire department for the excessive acacia, even though they aren't trimming it back. So we can't spend in unless it's fallen down.
But I thought I would ask.
That's just my thought.
I thought I would ask the
Not
question.
everybody else agrees, but we have to work on the outside of these buildings too. We really do.
Okay. Ernesto, you want to keep going?
If you want me to.
Sure.
The next one was about the trash chutes, the trash chute repairs. And the manufacturer experienced a 2-week delay on that because of materials, specialty materials that they had to order, some custom colors that go around the chutes. So it's taking a little bit longer than expected. We anticipate beginning mid-July, mid this month on this project. And I apologize because I believe I had told you, and that's what I put in the project log, so we're gonna start it in June.
Yeah.
But I was informed that they were late.
One question I had, I've been approached by a couple of people that said that in their particular buildings, the very bottom of the trash chute is narrower than up above. And so stuff gets caught there, and they have to take a branch or something and try to pull it out to get into the dumpster, and then they get it on themselves. Can that be looked at?
Is there a building number? No. But I'll get with you afterwards.
It's the ones that have the dumpster underneath it.
Right.
They all
right,
do.
Right, they all do. They all come down to a narrow passage there.
Yeah, go ahead, Rosemary.
I'm concerned about the residents. How long does, I would like to know the manner of notification. And I don't have to answer it now, but how long is it going to take? And stuff like that, because not before, like the thing is the trash chute is, if it's out of order, what are we doing for trash? So the people have to know. So do you has a letter been written? Has
Yeah,
Eileen
in fact,
reviewed it? I mean, where are
yes,
you?
in fact, we send notifications for the first 15 buildings. I don't know which building numbers those are.
And what did the thing that I'm concerned about is what does the notification say? Because the last time when we decided that we were gonna, what did we do? When we worked on the trash chutes before and we cleaned them, we said, we're gonna be cleaning the trash chutes. And basically, our letter should say, in our constant efforts to improve your blah, blah, blah. So did the letter go to Eileen for review, to review? How is it being done? Is it being mailed? Is it being handed out? Is it being posted in the laundry? We're supposed to always have a communication plan for something that's big. And this is big. So,
Yes, they did go out.
you told me that already.
Right, and
Did anybody review the letter? Did Eileen review the letter? She's supposed to?
Yes.
Yes, she did?
Actually, yeah, this letter actually had been reviewed by Lori Moss.
Well,
But we're having Eileen review all subsequent letters, but we're not gonna delay our program, so Eileen can
I know,
review
but the thing is, but the last notice was very poor. Because it says we're just doing the work. We didn't, so has anybody on the board seen the letter? I mean, maybe I'll see it someday, being that I live in a 3-story building.
yeah,
But
you'll
we
get
don't
one.
know anything, this is something that Lynn should have a copy of it, so she knows what it's gonna say, so if somebody asks questions, why are we doing it? How long is it gonna take? What is gonna be the I don't know how long it's gonna take. Where are the people gonna put the trash? I mean, because there have been nightmares in 3-story buildings forever. Once the trash chute was blocked up for like 3 months and they didn't do anything. So
Yeah.
where can we,
Yeah, we can certainly give you a copy of the letter.
yeah, but the thing is why did that happen? Why did we not see the letter? why?
The letter goes out to everybody who's gonna be affected. Do you want to receive?
We asked that when something was significant, it should go to the head of the committee, the president of Garden Villas, it's a Gardenville letter. We have to, the biggest problem we have is our communications. So we want to make sure that it's right.
We'll certainly get you copies of it. The letter states that the repairs on the trash chutes will temporarily close the trash chutes for the date that they're being worked on. So
Just one day?
just the one date that's
And what are
being
the people
worked on.
supposed to do with their trash?
Hold it until the repairs are completed. I can't think of any other way of doing it.
Well, the thing is that they can do that, but is the trash chute room locked then? Because they're working on it?
Why are they working on it? Yes, they will cordon it off.
And has the trash company been advised so they don't come up and try to pick up the trash?
That will be coordinated with the trash company, yes. For the first 15 units, right?
Okay, all right, so could you just send us a copy of the letter, please?
Absolutely, be happy to.
But that should be constant method of operation.
Right, so
Our
we'll do that.
SOP communication manual.
No, so we'll be doing that, and we'll be running these letters by communication, make sure that they're happy with the way they're being put, that we're putting them out and that.
So are they
provide-
being mailed or are they just being posted?
They're being mailed. to
Why are we mailing
Everyone,
them?
everyone affected.
Okay, we also talked about that we didn't have to bother to spend the money to mail them all, and they could be posted. They could be posted on the door and posted in the room. And because we have the bulletin boards that we bought, we have the trash room doors, we have the trash chutes, that would save time and money, and we would make sure that if the president knew, that the captains would know, and it would be organized.
Well, we can go ahead and post the next batch of notifications instead of mailing them. And we'll get them to Lynn, we'll get you copies, we'll do whatever we need to do to communicate better, obviously. You know, but we didn't want to delay the program to have the letter review one more time, because it was reviewed by Lori Moss one time.
And Lori's been gone for 5 months.
Yes.
Well, see, because Roy and I were walking around when we were doing your signs, and there was a building with like all tape on the trash door, and we said to the residents, they were walking out, why is your trash room door closed? We don't know.
That had to.
No, I mean, so I'm going,
yeah.
oh my,
No, that's correct, but that had to be something that different from this program, though. It might.
yeah, but
it
I
was-
think that when people get mail from GRF and Third, they don't even open it. Sometimes, it's like, oh, what are they sending me, a bill? So, all
We'll be sure to post them as well.
right, thank you.
Yeah, Ed, you want to say something?
Yes, Ed McGill, 23902C. On Friday, I received a letter notifying me that in August, first week of August, it did have the specific date. I didn't bring it. I didn't know it was going to be that much of a problem. But indicating that the trash chutes would be done. There is a paragraph in there saying that the laundry room, and the trash chutes will be closed. My only question when I saw it was, could we use them after they were done? It does say they will be done in 1 day.
Right.
So I'm assuming that after they leave, the trash room and the laundry room could be used again.
That is correct.
Okay, so they did send it, and they sent it to me and to everyone else in there. It was not like the error in the other one saying that the green carpet had been replaced. And this one, it was right by putting it at least a month in advance, because I got it on Friday. And it says that it's going to be done in August.
Okay, you want to go on beyond trash chutes now?
Well,
Do you dare go beyond trash?
It's not me. It's you want me to go through them, I'll go through them. You want me to talk
Would you
about
I
asphalt?
assume that this is going to cover a lot what we talk about in the project log.
It's the majority of it. It's in the project log.
Right, you
you
just
know.
wanted, and when I wrote that email, I just wanted an update because this project log is dated in
Right.
a sense. It's-
Okay. Would you like me to address
Go
the
ahead,
other?
go ahead, Ernesto.
Okay. So you want me to talk about the asphalt paving program? The
May I request you to just say which number you're addressing?
We're actually not following the project log right now. I'm following a list that I received from Director Walsh. So the next item is about asphalt paving. We worked at, we,
Number 12, I'll go through, it's number 12, okay?
okay, so the asphalt work began in May and will be completed in July. The 2018 program consists of about 90,000 square feet of pavement replacement. And the scheduled cul-de-sacs is here are 315, 316, 322, 323, 366, 3150, and 3317. The original cul-de-sacs that we planned initially were changed because of the work that El Toro Water District is doing. So we need to readjust our schedule. The next question you had was about the Parkway concrete repair.
Number 13.
Excuse me, I saw an El Toro water truck speeding today.
Did you get how fast was he going?
Really fast.
Just
About
fast?
really fast. I thought, because they're white, I thought it was one of our trucks. And then it went so fast you could barely see the writing on the side.
But may have had a
And
water leak he was trying to get to.
No, I don't think so. They were probably going on a break.
On what road?
On Calais Sonora.
I thought that was a hill.
They're going downhill, right?
No, after you get uphill, you can drive, and they were speeding.
But we're just pulling your chain here. Okay, go ahead. Ernesto.
Okay,
Can't-
the next
it's not
item
gonna
is-
work.
The next item is the Parkway concrete repair. And one of the questions that you have, Bill, it says funding is coming out of the operating fund for the concrete repairs. No, this concrete is funded from the reserve fund, not the operating fund. The concrete replacement work, we started in May. And in June, the concrete work was actually completed and it's currently curing and waiting for the asphalt work to begin. The building address signs, the signs have been ordered. Both Rosemarie and Roy took a lot of time to go out there and identify locations of the signs. Staff did the same thing, and we matched the information that they provided with ours to make sure we were on the same page. So for those addresses where we were in agreement, we went ahead and ordered the signs. So we anticipate beginning the installation towards the end of July on the signs.
Okay. When, did they say when they would be able to get them made and back to us?
They're being fabricated, they will be fabricated in July, probably be done with that mid-July, and towards the end of July, they're gonna start installing them.
Is this a vendor that we got out of Washington State, or is this a local vendor that's doing these? I mean, we talked, there was a vendor that Steve
What about-
identified.
What about the
I believe it's the same, the vendor, the local vendor.
It's a local vendor, okay.
Bill,
Yeah?
did your order include the cul-de-sac signs that we specified?
Yes, I will be cul-de-sac 212 and as well as gate 14 area.
But I'm talking about the cul-de-sac signs, we're taking
Oh, no, no,
off-
no, 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 no. This is just the building signs.
What happened to the requirements for the cul-de-sac signs?
We didn't, we decided that we were gonna address the building signs first. We haven't looked at the cul-de-sac signage.
But we're not gonna spend all the money on that because we only needed 70. That's why, the whole idea was to get those cul-de-sac signs in there so people can see them at night. Because they're reflective and they're only 4 feet off the ground, which means that if you're driving in your car, your headlights are gonna hit them where we specified to put them.
No, I understand that. The direction that we received last time was to address the building signs first. So that's what we're doing right now. If you
Well, I don't
us-
want us to forget the second part of that.
Sure, sure. After we install the signs, you can give us additional direction as to whether you want to continue to do the buildings, or if you want us to stop and do cul-de-sac signs, or you want to do a combination of both, however you want to do it.
Well, I recommend that the cul-de-sac signs are just as important as the building signs, because the building signs are not guaranteed to be seen at night. And the cul-de-sac signs, as we have specified them, will be seen at night. And if you get into the right cul-de-sac, you can probably find the building.
I agree.
Bert Moldo's correct on that. But I didn't say that.
Okay, Rosemarie?
I would hope, though, because what we wanted to do is we were doing these areas, 2 areas as a pilot, then with both of these components, we cut back the number of building signs. We were gonna have 4 or whatever. We cut it back to 2 on like the Garden Villas, 1 over the main door, 1 over the garage. So the thing is that if we could have somebody start working on the cul-de-sac signs so that we could say these are parts 1 and 2 of the signage program. Because we're going to combine them going forward, not just order building number signs.
Sure.
So if you could, I know you have to put that out to bid and do a whole diddly
Right.
what. So if you
Right.
can start that have that going while you're waiting for the other ones to come in, it would be a
Sure,
good
we'll
thing.
get that process going as well.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Ernesto.
The next item you had, Bill, was about building structures. Several building structural repairs requests have been received for minor repairs and building settlement issues. So there's a number of buildings that have been addressed with that already. Some of them require a contract to go out to bid because they're a little bit larger than others. B967 contract was awarded in June by the board. And B5359, a small repair that has been awarded, is being scheduled by the vendor that we retain. And we actually have RFPs that are being prepared for the repair of buildings 5258, 2267, 2280, and 2328. You also asked about the condition of the vinyl tile in the elevator floors. And we went out there, and actually, there's a couple of photographs that I sent to your email that indicate that the vinyl is holding up very well.
Okay.
The Garden Villa Breezeway pilot, would you like me to talk about that, Bunny? Building 2384 began construction in March, and it has already been completed. It was actually completed the first week of June. Buildings 2385 and 2386 are in progress and are scheduled to be completed this month. Walkway lighting project, I sent all of you an email with a schedule of that project. The contractor has begun with about 100 bowlers that they had in stock and will be installed in the next 2 weeks. The remaining 490 are in order and are expected to arrive in July. We are estimating an installation rate of about 50 to 60 bowlers per week, which will take us to around the mid-October for completion of that project. I believe today we're working at cul-de-sac 212.
Yeah, they came about noontime. They slept in, I guess, this morning.
No, they were working somewhere else. So, yeah, they're rolling as they complete other areas, they move into a new area. Let's see, what other questions? You had a question about the replacement fund, exterior lighting, that it went from 234 in April to 20,000. I believe this was a miscode of about $18,000, and we're working with finance to correct that.
So it's a finance error. I mean,
Yeah,
it's an accounting
well,
error.
I don't know if it's finance, it could be an error as well if we miscoded the numbers correctly. So we're working with finance to make sure that the money comes out of the right account.
Okay. And so basically, I guess my real question ultimately comes down to we didn't spend that much, we didn't even come close to spending that kind of money on exterior lighting in
No,
May. Okay.
No, it's a
All right.
miscode.
All right, thank you.
And I believe that those were your questions.
For closed meeting? Pardon me? Yeah. I've got some closed meeting questions in there, but we'll get that in the closed
Yeah,
session.
if we can address that in the close.
Okay.
So that concludes my department head updates. We can continue with the agenda.
Okay. So what did we move? We move on to item number 8 and programs report.
We have to vote.
And did we move 8, 9, and 10 out of the
No.
consent?
Just 9 and 10.
Just 9 and 10? So can you address the, Ernesto, the maintenance expenditures and variance
No.
explanations?
We have
When I
to
have
vote.
questions.
Don't we have to approve the consent, the
We-
programs report? Is there anything to vote on there?
Well, they're out of the consent. You moved them out for items for
No,
discussion.
I didn't move number 8 out.
Yeah, okay,
So do we have to vote on number 8?
yeah. Good point. Okay. Were there any other items on the programs report that anybody wanted to discuss that weren't discussed by Ernesto?
I just appreciated it. I can follow the detail all the way through.
Okay, so,
Okay.
so then I move that we approve the programs report as stated by staff.
Okay. Have a second? Any other conversation? If not, all those in favor? Okay. Now we'll move to item number 9, which is no longer under the consent calendar. Maintenance expenditures and variance explanations. I assume there's questions. Okay, Rosemarie?
I just said, my questions are sort of simple, but concrete repair and replacement is under operating fund, is that correct? And that's number 5 on
Number
the
5,
operating
yeah.
fund. And we weren't crazy this month, but we're way over budget. So we're okay on that? Or are we going to be way over budget all, is it going to continue being way over budget? This month was under control.
Right, no, I anticipate, and I believe, let's see, I believe that's general services, right? That's general
Yeah.
services
I know.
account. So I could ask Bruce whether, he's gonna be on target or not.
Well, let me do a follow-up on that.
Yeah.
He started right out of the chute. He said he had 1,000 tickets. And basically, we just cut him loose. And then it started going down and then started coming back up. So we thought that over time, it was going to straight line out and be even. But it doesn't
Yeah,
look like it's happening
I
that
think
way.
to answer your question, Rosemarie, generally, his tickets should actually not grow out of proportion. So that the budget should really remain fairly steady. And you added.
Well, it was steadily over. That's
Well, it shouldn't really do that, though. It should actually decline because you instituted a Parkway concrete program.
Right.
So you're funding about $150,000 on proactive work, which will diminish the work that Bruce has to do in the long run. So.
Okay, all right. And my other question, unfortunately, is also not in your area. But the thing is and probably James knows about this, but it's still on this report. The tree replacement is that, it's just budgeted, but we do the work in a different way. So we won't be over budget by year end, will we? Tree replacement is on replacement, tree maintenance, not replacement, I'm sorry. Then we don't have a tree replacement budget. Tree maintenance is 554, is already 60% over budget. So the question is that just because of the way it's being done? That we do it? So could we just find out? And let Steve know?
I can follow up with Bruce if you
Well,
like.
James could do it too. I mean, you have enough to do, because I just don't know, oh, wait, we found more trees to maintain or something like that. So those were my only other questions.
Yeah, Steve?
Question on the next page, page 2 of 4. Plumbing service. I know we're going gangbusters. Is this amount actually going to take us through based on our current trend? Because we're over half spent. And this is the end of May.
Which line item was that, Steve? I'm sorry.
Number 16 on page 2 of 4. So we're already 54% at the end of May.
Yeah, we have to really see, a lot of it is ticket driven. So it depends. If we have a lot of plumbing issues, then this goes up. If there's few, then it remains steady. So it's really hard to answer that question.
You mean just stay with the way we are and just see how it goes?
Yes, that's my recommendation, that we don't do nothing at this point and let's see where we're heading.
I have a question. If we charge somebody, like, for example, the people who are in the unit lower than ours, they have over $6,000 of plumbing labor to fix their leak. Do we then credit the labor back to the plumbing account because we bill them?
Yes.
If we're billing out the service.
We should.
Is that all?
I believe we do. We should anyway.
Or she says she
Yeah.
keeps putting it.
Right. Otherwise, your accounting gets all,
So as soon as we bill it out, it gets credited back to, because it gets moved over then to accounts receivable.
I believe so, but, I'll have to defer to Betty on
Yeah,
that.
because the thing is there is a bit of plumbing that, we don't only bill people out for dry down and all outside services. We bill people for our labor, so it would be interesting to have the answer
Right.
to
Not
that.
all accounts work that way.
I know. Some of our,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
John?
This may not be the right place to discuss this, Ernesto, but my duplex is being tented. And my neighbor told me that she has to pay for her pets. Is there any, I see we're 84% under budget. Should we consider paying for pets?
I would recommend against it, but it's not my decision. It's really a board decision. So maybe you want to have that
So
discussion
maybe
here.
we should put
you
that
know.
on an agenda in the future.
But well, we can discuss it now. My recommendation is no. What do you have?
Well, isn't past even isn't that include termiting? I mean, termites.
Pets,
That,
John's talking about
cats and dogs.
Pets, cats, dogs.
Dogs,
You know.
cats,
what about them?
He's talking about
the boarding of them.
boarding them at the Irish Hotel or something.
Oh,
Pay for that.
Ayers allows pets.
No,
They don't?
What happens is if they have pets, if they have pets that the Ayers Hotel doesn't accept, then they go to another hotel that does accept pets, and they submit for reimbursement for all charges except for the pet fee. So we'll pay up to what you are contracted with the Ayers, and they are responsible if it goes over that amount or for any pets.
You know, we should talk to staff because we should be using a pet-friendly hotel. Or have them have a choice and not let people, because so many people have pets. I didn't know. I'm gonna have to stay at my sister's house when they do my building.
When I talked to Ayers, they said, oh, they do that next door, and there is an animal place next door, but.
Yeah, but
But even if they stayed at the Ayers and the Ayers took pets, the Ayers would charge a pet fee, which again, the resident, yes, yeah.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, moving along to what would be number 10, project log, and we discussed a lot of those already. Is there anything else on that project log that you want to bring up, that you have questions about or need an update on? Oh, Rosemarie.
I just have a question. You know, I sat down with Push to go over this because he's new on the board, and I said, and he had a really good question. Why, they're different colors here. Do we have a color legend? Usually when we use different colors on the side for a reason, right?
Right, the colors on the,
So there should be a color legend.
okay, the colors on the, we can add a legend if you
No,
want.
it should just be there because if you, the thing is that's so simple to do.
Right, but you have numbers on each one of those, and it's.
But you have different colors, and I have no idea what the difference between orange, green, and blue was. And this is such a fabulous report. If you wanted it to be even more fabulous, you could have a little color legend.
Would it
What
help
does
if
it
we?
mean?
Would it help if we take the colors away?
No, no. Do the colors there for a reason, or is it just because that's what
Just,
kind of?
it's, you know, it's helpful to me because these are the work centers actually that are actually
Well,
doing
then
the
all you
work.
have to do is say orange is this. What are we gonna say? Colors are there because Ernesto likes them, but we don't know what they mean.
What is GRF's gold or orange?
I'm sorry?
No.
Brown?
No, it's similar colors, similar colors.
No, but I don't know what they mean. If you could just put that on, it would be, I don't know what it means at
Okay.
all. And I think the
Ernesto's colors,
colors
leave 'em
are
alone.
great. The colors are fabulous, but I didn't know what they meant. And don't you take them off next month, because I'll be very upset, because I can see colors now.
Numbers are one color.
It's a secret engineering code.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, all right, we'll move along to reports. We've already done item number 11. Number 12, programmable drawing costs per.
Well, let's go back to 11. Actually, I do have a report
Oh,
for you. I know that you received the presentation. You had a comment, Rosemary?
So, forgive me.
No.
So after we move something off of the consent calendar and we discuss it, we don't have to vote for it anymore. We just said we were discussing it and we discussed it, right?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
typically the way you do
All
it
right.
is you pull it and you move the balance of the calendar.
Yeah, we almost,
We discuss it.
right, we almost should have a heading, even if it's blank, when you start the agenda, that says items for discussion, and so you can move them down under there. I think it'd probably be better. Okay,
Okay, so.
all right, go ahead, Ernesto.
Item number
Sure.
11?
You're in
Okay,
number 11.
so essentially you already heard an hour and a half presentation on dry rot, so I'm not gonna touch on that anymore. What I do wanna discuss with you is where we go from here. So what staff is proposing is that we advertise the project. One of the things that we did with this consultant is we didn't want a pretty book that we could just put on our shelf and forget about it for, whatever they charge us to do this. We wanted to end up with a set of specifications for at least 20 buildings that we could immediately put out to bid. And that's what they did. They prepared specifications, they prepared all of the special provisions, all of the estimates, all of the bid tables. So we're ready to go. As he mentioned, we can go to the city, get permits to do this work, and put it out to bid and advertise it. So they came up with 16 buildings actually that needed work. And what I'm recommending is that we add an additional 4 buildings to that. And then we advertise it for construction. And then we bring it back to you with a recommendation to award a contract. So that's what I'm suggesting today. So if that's the direction that we're actually asking you to do, to direct us to advertise the project and bring it back to you for consideration of award of a contract.
Bill?
John, and then Steve.
I'm sorry, I'm first. Does that money, the $534,000 they've asked for, does that include construction support? Are you going to hire, also, are you going to consider hiring a project manager or only?
Good point.
No, what we propose to do is to project manage it ourselves, but we do have an inspector, a specialized inspector that can oversee their work.
You're going to hire, you have
We
one?
would like to have an inspector.
Good.
As part of the contract, yes. And
Money spent.
that's correct. And you have about $180,000 budgeted for that. You started with a 1.25 million or something. We're at 887,000. So what I'd like to do is award a contract for more than the actual amount of the bid, so that we have the ability to increase the amount as needed as we find dry rot. Because you're not going to know the extent of it until we get into it. So I want to be able to do that. But right now, the direction is that we put it out to bid, advertise it, see what bids we get, and come back to you with our recommendation for award of a contract.
Okay, so you're going to hire a inspector. How about construction support? Is there money in there for that?
We will provide the construction support in-house.
Construction support, by definition, is the consultant has to be on board every day and be checking on this thing.
We're going to do that through an inspection services.
So we're not going to ask the consultant to come back and check on things and
On,
attend meetings.
We could get the inspection services from the consultant that prepared a report. They can provide that.
I think you should have money in there for the consultant to attend meetings and participate in construction support.
Well, you have plenty of money in there to do that. We want to manage this in-house, and we want to have inspection services to make sure that the work is being done per the specifications that were put together. That was the approach that we're going to follow.
Bill?
Yeah, I got,
Okay, what are you thinking about, 500,000?
Say that again?
Are you a bogey of 500,000, somewhere in there?
At least.
He's got 534 in the report.
Well, yeah, but they're only saying that the repair should be around 341,000.
That's correct.
Okay.
So we're anticipating maybe encumbering about $500,000.
Yeah.
So that we have the flexibility to add work scope as needed, and have an inspection services to make sure that the contractor is doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Rosemary?
We certainly don't want to tell you how to run your project, so if you want to hire a consultant, or if you want to hire an inspector, or you want to hire a project manager, we have it budgeted so that you don't deplete your staff.
Right.
Because we know how much stuff you have to do. We just know it has to be done. So it's up to you to decide how you want to do it. But we're not going to hold you and say, oh, we'll just give Roger one more thing to do and have him like
No,
Dave
I
and crazy. So
appreciate.
whatever you decide,
Yeah, I
you
appreciate that. We
decide.
want to strike a balance for you so that we use your money wisely. So if we can manage it in-house, we'll assess that, as we get more into the year. some of the projects wind down, so we may have access capacity to do it. If we don't, we certainly will recommend that we hire somebody to manage the project, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, one other thing.
ahead, Steve.
We want that cost reflected in the dry rot. If you have an inspector or something like that, not in outside services.
No, it will all
Okay.
go back to the dry rot, yeah.
Do we need to give do we
Just
want to
to-
give Ernesto direction at what to do then?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Okay, I have a motion?
Staff recommendation.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second? Any more discussion?
He'll have to give us a target amount.
Well, he's got 534 in the report.
No, it's actually $887,000.
It's right here.
Yeah.
The consultant says 534.
I know, but he may not have everything wrapped up in that.
Oh, no, you need to look at the report that is in front of you. It's item 11. And page 2 of the item 11 talks about what the unencumbered balance is, which is $887,822.
So does everybody understand that we're going to authorize Ernesto to set up an account or an encumbrance for $887,000?
Yeah, well, you don't have to do that today. Today, what we're looking for is direction to package this thing and put it out to bid. And then we'll come back to you with actual encumbrances.
You got it?
I have a question then. Why does he say 534,000 on the second, on the last page, second to last page?
Of this
Yes.
document? John?
231, yes.
You're talking about this
Yeah,
document?
second to last page. And he says it's only 331 plus 203, which is 534. And now you're asking for 800.
No, that's the executive summary of what was prepared, and that's why I'm suggesting that we may encumber about $500,000, because that's what they indicated, that it will be a comfortable figure for us to address the uncertainties related to, with their work. So that's what I'm saying, we should encumber approximately about $500,000. I'm gonna come back to do that for you. Right now, all we're asking for is direction to package it and put it out to bid, so we can get some real numbers.
So you understand that? And you're going to include they had 16 buildings and you added 4 more to make it 20 buildings?
We're gonna select 4 more, that's correct.
4 more, okay. Does everybody understand that? Yep. If there's no other questions, all those in favor of the motion? You've been given direction. Thank you.
Go.
Steve? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought did I miss you when I said any
No,
questions?
this is a follow-up,
Okay.
because agenda item 11 is staff seeking recommendation, or has a recommendation and was seeking that. I had so that's to go do work now based on what has been identified by SGE at their initial pilot program, right?
That is correct.
So going forward, past this implementation of this work, I'm trying to understand how the continuing investigation of the dry rot will proceed, i.e., will SG&E be retained to do more testing on a different side of building? You mentioned, let me back that up. You mentioned you were going to do a report based on what SG&E.
No, that's a very good question, Steve. How do we move forward beyond the 20 buildings?
Right.
So what we intend to do is, because now we have really good
Yes.
detailing to repair these problems, and they're not going to change from building to building. The details are going to be whatever they are. We also have specifications that have already been prepared. So what we would like to do moving forward is contract for the work and have SGE perform just an inspection of the buildings that we propose to do next. So not necessarily a comprehensive report like they did.
Right.
But just the inspection so that we can arrive at quantities for the contractor.
Because my concern in listening to the report and understanding the limitations of the pilot project, right? 20 buildings, et cetera, and the elevation of the building, the facing of the building, some of the things that both of you went into. With 1,405 buildings and sampling 20 of them, just for example, in the three-story buildings, there's 83 of them, 81, 83. Those were all built between 1970 and 1978. So that's one of the things that's just rolling around in the back of my head, that although the elevation and which way the building faced, there may be a lot more to this going forward in the identification of the buildings that need to be done and the amount of work that will need to be done based on the age of the building, not necessarily by the age, but how well it was built by the contractors that built those phases.
Right.
And the other thing that I noted going through some of my other data is that all of the buildings here in Third were built in an 11-year period between 1970 and 1980. So I'm very curious to see if you generate anything in your report that talks about the 20 buildings that were sampled to their ages and when they were built, because we may have clusters of buildings that were sampled, and we may not have tested some in any of the phases, for example. So that's, again, it's just rolling around in the back of my mind. There's a couple more data points that I'm not
Right. So
seeing
those are
here.
all trends that we're looking for.
Right.
Right.
And I know. So, and I just wanted to bring that up because I am familiar with the phases and the constructions of these buildings because I've just been at this for a while.
Right. I think it's a good point too, Steve. And one of the things, I don't think we have a record of actually who the contractor was that actually built these, or do we?
There should be a name on the as-built drawings.
Yeah.
So are you
Of the
getting at the point
contractor?
where it's, if you find dry rot in one of these buildings, you might want to go look at what else that contractor did, if they had the same building techniques, you know?
Yeah.
Because James and I, for instance, live 150 feet apart, and he's got ABS drain pipes, and I've got cast iron.
And you don't, that's
And
correct.
it's two different contractors who are building those two different units,
Yep,
you know?
yep.
So,
Those 20 buildings being representative of 1,405 is a very, very small data point.
Well, actually, 700. They're representative of about.
Oh, yeah, 20 out
700
of, representative
models,
of
so-
700 and
so-
change. Right, yeah, well, but again, depending on which of the buildings were sampled and when they were built and who they were built by,
Right, right.
given that 11-year stretch of the construction, that's
Right.
just,
Those are all the things that you want to identify moving forward.
so I'll be real interested to see that report when you get it. Thank you.
any further discussion, or anything you want to say? Ernesto, should we move on to item 12 then?
Let's go ahead and do item 12.
Okay. Programmable drawing costs per load. We do have a long history in this agenda of all of the ups and downs and goes and rounds on this
Yeah,
one.
we've been before you 5 times with reports on this. The last direction that we received was to, it was voted to have staff advertise for a contract to purchase the machines and also include the platforms as an alternative bid to the contractor, so you could get a price for including platforms with the contract. And the direction was to bring that back in September to the committee.
Okay. We've kind of, in my estimation, and I'd like Steve and Rosemary and Roy, since we all kind of met over this, have accelerated this on you a little bit because we're trying to figure out how to budget, and Rosemary touched on it at the beginning of the meeting. And this whole issue of surcharges and how we're going to how we're going to charge in the future once we decide on what we're going to charge for a dry. And do any of you want to comment on that?
Well, if I just made, you do have the latest budgetary figure that we have right now is $294,000 for the purchase of machines. So I'm not sure what you're looking for, but you do have that. It's included in the report.
Right, and I know, I was keying in on the idea that we told you in September.
Right.
But my impression is, and people can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we also want to figure out our budgets and what we're going to do with the people in three-story buildings and people who use standalone laundry rooms, how that's going to impact their surcharges. So we went ahead and had this closed meeting and then turned it over to finance to run some numbers. Anybody else want to make comment on that?
Yeah, I have, well, go ahead.
Actually, the surcharge, not taking into the consideration, because I have a preliminary budget in front of me, and if I take the rec room out of it, the surcharge is going to go down $3.69 per manor per month. Then that's surcharges. So that's enough for $3.69. But then what she did is they moved the laundry charge out of a surcharge, the buying of equipment charge, whatever we
Right,
call that.
replacement char- the
Replacement
replacement.
charge. She moved it out of the surcharge and put it in for everybody should share in it, because everybody owns those machines. They're owned by third. They're not owned by the Garden Villas, yet the Garden Villas have the money in there. And I don't know why she made it $1.70. I have that circled for the budget, because the thing is so now instead of 3,000 units paying for it, 6,000 units are paying for it. And we already have a lot of money in the replacement fund, if you look at the amount. So I have to have that adjusted. So I think that we're in good shape, other than some little nitpicky things.
Okay.
The thing is the 50 cents that we talked about, is that for like a 30-minute cycle? And if somebody, what I don't know, so say somebody was drying super thick bath towels, and it took more than 30 minutes, do they put in another 50 cents for another dry? I don't know that.
No, what we're suggesting is that you get about 20 minutes per quarter so you put 25 cents, you get 20 minutes. So you put 50 cents, you get 40 minutes. So
And is that a
way-
typical dry?
That's, Steve could probably
Typical?
tell you better, what the drying cycle for a industrial
See, because if
machine-
I dry, if you dry sheets and stuff, it doesn't take 40 minutes, but it doesn't take 20 minutes, it takes 30 minutes. But if it's 50 cents per 20 minutes,
50 cents per 40 minutes. It's 25 cents per 20 minutes.
So may I? I would recommend that you make it 25-cent increments, because if somebody only needs to dry for 20 minutes, they don't need to put in 50 cents.
right, that's correct.
So
Right.
quarter increments.
Right, and that's
whatever
what-
you decide for that time.
Exactly, and that's what
15
we're
minutes,
suggesting.
17 minutes, 20 minutes.
Exactly.
And
That's-
the amount of
that's-
drying that's going to be required is really going to be a function of the materials you're drying and how much of it you put in the dryer.
How stuffed it is.
Right.
Or yesterday, I saw somebody who washed their sheets in their sink. God,
Yeah.
it's just- And then they put it in the dryer.
Right.
And maybe they'll stop doing that because they'll realize it takes long because the things are so wet.
So, and again, you can,
Well,
right.
so if you think that I was thinking 50 cents for a half hour. But I don't want, which would be a quarter for every 15 minutes. But if you're saying, and you knew the dryer world, if you're saying there's no load that's done in 15 minutes, that would be an insult. And we should do a quarter, because you can do a load in 20 minutes, and you could do a quarter for 20 minutes. I don't know.
If I take my skivvies and my T-shirts,
Depends on what
and I don't
fabric.
have that many of them, just a few T-shirts and, some skivvies and I throw it in there, I can probably dry my stuff in 15 minutes on it. But you make the decision on the 25 cents per X number of minutes.
Right.
Don't have to do it now. But there is one thing that I wanted to talk about on this specifically, is that when I hear the conversation about the surcharge, right, and now I'm understanding Betty is coming back and trying to put it across all 6,102 units. If you look at the reserves, and you have this as a reserve item for your laundries, everything I keep reading in all of these says, your ROI will be, your ROI will be. I would say, stop even talking about that, because what you're talking about with collecting this revenue is to offset the electricity charges where you've been taking all your losses. It has nothing to do with the capital equipment purchase or future reserve items that you do. According to the 2018 Green Book, you're collecting $2 per man or per month on 3,454 manners, which brings you in your $83,000. Next year, you had the surcharge to be at $3. That's just the reserve surcharges. The money collected at the dryers is an operating income to go against the operating
We know
expenses.
that, that's how it's put in the budget.
Right, so, but again, when I read the staff reports and it says ROI of 3.5 years or 2.4 years, I'm going, it's irrelevant to the conversation. So, okay.
Well, not really. It's still relevant, because if the ROI was, 20 years, I mean, they still have to do it, because we're still spending the money, whether it's coming out of reserves or it's coming out of our pocketbook, it's still our money. So they have to show a return on using our money to invest in something. But you're probably right. And the thing is we have beaten this to death. After this, we're going to just buy disposable clothes and not have to use a frickin' dryer, and that's it. Right.
Mr. Parsons?
Yeah, one question I didn't ask the distributor was, when your load is dry, will it turn off?
It'll turn off when the 20 minutes are over.
Okay.
When your money's done.
Right. And I would recommend that you stick with quarters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Why, you want us to use nickels and dimes?
Well, you said 15 cents.
No, I said 50 cents.
Oh, 50.
You don't understand my New York accent. Must be point
Yeah.
of origin.
Go ahead, Roy.
The number that we were talking about in our special meeting for the purchase of the dryers and the pedestals together, coming out of the replacement fund for 331 dryers and pedestals, was $364,100, and you quoted 291.
294.
294. Are we getting discounts, or what's happening there?
Maybe it didn't have the pedestals.
Well, that's why
Or
I'm
installation
That's
or
why I'm
something.
asking the question, because Lynn is at the podium, and I
Yeah,
know,
I believe
know
it's-
what she's going to say.
Yeah, I believe it's the dryers installed. It does not include the platform. As I mentioned at the on the direction that you gave me last time, that I suggested that we put it as a separate item in your contracts. So when we advertise, we'll get a price also for the stand. So separate. So then you can make a decision as to whether you want to move forward with that or not.
So the
It just gives you another option.
364,000 is a
It gives
good
you another
number
option.
as a placeholder.
I thought that you were also, though, going to possibly look at, I could just hear them now. If you put them in with a pedestal, then they'll be complaining that the washers aren't on a
Yeah.
pedestal. And I had to bend down once instead, whatever. So I thought you were, don't laugh, Lynn, because you know it's true. I thought you were looking at the possibility of getting a pedestal that wasn't machines, just for the dryers, that you could just put both things on the pedestal.
We
Raise
could-
them both up.
Yeah, we can advertise it either way. And we can advertise it for individual or for both. I mean, so.
And one, if you're really tall, you don't want a pedestal, so I'll have to get a tall building.
But, yeah, okay.
So we should put that, can we,
For both.
what do you think, Bill?
I was just thinking, if there were an even number of washers and dryers in all these laundry rooms. I
Well,
don't think
there
there
are.
are.
We're only going to have two. We're not having.
Two
we're
and
not-
two?
2 and 2, 1 and 1, no buildings that have 2 washers. If they have a second washer, that one is not going on a pedestal. That one will be on the floor, but they shouldn't have to. It should be 1 and 1.
So we'll bid it.
What about
with-
standalone
But,
laundry rooms?
and the standalone laundries are you going to put the washers on the dryers on a pedestal in the standalone laundries? Do we get complaints about those too?
Well, you've got to be consistent, I think.
Yes.
You're going to have, you're stuck
Right,
with-
if, our assumption was gonna be, if we're gonna go with pedestals,
Yeah.
we're gonna put them everywhere.
Let me
Okay.
just interject some here. When I talked to the distributor, I said, okay, now we have the cost, because they quoted me a cost for the dryer. I said, okay, now a pedestal, and by the way, what about installation? They said, we can do the 8-inch pedestal and the installation, both together for $100. Now that's maybe off the cuff or whatever, just for your own information.
Yeah.
That's what they told me.
Well, I would like to go out to bid with it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, because that's the real price we're gonna get.
It
And-
kind of gives you an idea of what they were talking
Right,
about.
but what I wanted to do was separate it, do it as an alternate bid, because then it gives you the option. You look at the price, and then you can make a decision.
Well, then, could you add to the bid having a pedestal that would hold both machines? If you had two?
No, we were just thinking dryers, but if the direction is to do it for both machines.
Well, I think that it wouldn't hurt if you can get that might be a totally different price. It might say, well, then it's gonna be $300, and then we say, forget it. You know,
Yeah,
like-
we can also separate that, so you can see the different breakdowns.
I think that
But are
would
your
be,
washers top load, or are they side
You don't
load?
want a pedestal under.
They're all front loaded.
If you got a top load, you don't want it.
we shouldn't have any top
We
loads.
should have all
and
front loaders.
It should be,
Top loads should have been replaced.
yeah, we're going to, front load, so.
If we have any top loads,
No, washing machines is what we're talking
So,
about.
Right.
So that's the direction. Now, the timing, are we still in the September timing?
we're in the install in December timing,
Okay. All right, very good.
No.
okay.
One last
Yeah,
thing.
Steve, go ahead.
or
When
January.
I talked with them, the one that you'd been talking with, Ernesto, the lady that you've been talking to,
Yes,
said that they could order them, and it would only take like 30 days to get here.
they're very
If
quick.
less. Yeah, and they could warehouse them until time for installation, then they just zip them all out and they put them in.
That's the idea.
Real
So,
fast.
yeah, so we're planning on probably starting to look at this mid this month. And, so we have enough time to.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want people to start paying extra for the dryers until the new year. That was our promise. So
you-
they have installation on Christmas and New Year. No.
So you want not September, but you want us to push it?
No, we were gonna start pricing and do the plan in September. Then we realized we had to change the plan so we could go into the budget. But we are not going to this would be like double dipping into the resident's pocketbook, and we're not gonna do that.
They
So
said
you-
that they could start like on the 10th of December and be ready by the 1st.
All right, so you want them installed towards the end of the year then, not September?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh, always.
Okay.
That, okay, I've got,
Kush, not cash.
I was
I've
just
got-
about
I've
to
got-
say, cash is not here, I don't have any in my pocket.
And he doesn't have any cash either.
I've got, Kush, were you gonna ask?
Okay,
I got
so-
Kush, I got Steve, and then I've got Jules.
But can we like stop talking about this after Jules, because we're so tired of it.
The laundry stuff that we're talking about is not only the 3-story buildings, it's also the gate 5 and 6 area.
Right,
That's right.
standalone.
So we have the freestanding laundry
Right.
rooms too. So when we do the pedestal thing, are we looking at machines like we see in the household with that little drawer, the pedestal? Is that the type of thing that we have? Are we looking at?
No.
No, it will be about a 6
8
to
or whatever.
Yeah, 6-inch pedestal, so you can raise it about 6
But it
inches.
is fixed to the machine, so it doesn't shake and move it around and
It would
fall
have
off?
to be somehow affixed to the machine. I'm not really familiar with how they do that, but they have to be
Okay.
fixed to the machine so it doesn't walk on you.
It
And we
would look
don't-
like one piece where there's a drawer. kind of sit-
We don't want a drawer.
I'm
People
not
will be
su-
We
No,
don't
putting
want
stuff
a
in it.
drawer, but it looks like a drawer.
No, it's no drawer.
There's no drawers in.
8 inches is what they
Yeah.
are.
Please,
So what about
let's
the
hire somebody to
washer?
clean
We
the
are going to
floor.
replace the washers too?
No,
No, just the dryers.
The front, the top loading machines which are already there?
We're not
Dryers
replacing the
only.
washers, no.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Leonard,
real quick. Most of this equipment is made in Mexico. You just had a presidential election. Our own president waffles every which way but Sunday.
We can't have political discussions in
If-
here.
well,
Talking about
it's pertinent to what's happening with tariffs.
If you can make arrangements with the distributor to put a purchase order in now and lock your price, and they will bring them in and warehouse them for you until you are ready for delivery.
At no charge.
I would
Highly recommend
very
that.
seriously suggest
Consider
you
it-
take
consider
that
this.
up on offer immediately through your finance department, whatever you have to do.
Right.
Because if you wait 30 days or 60 days and there's a 25% steel surcharge, and now all of a sudden you're going to have a 20% surcharge from laundry equipment coming up from Mexico, these $900 machines are going to be $1,080.
Gotcha? No, understood.
If you authorize us to move forward and start looking at this now to try to
Yes, we do.
tie something up, we'll go ahead and do that. I can guarantee you that the manufacturer is not gonna want to tie anything up without at least a deposit.
Yeah, but we have
So-
the money, we agree to it, it's in the budget, we're done.
They don't know that. They probably want some sort of deposit.
Sure.
So if it's okay to give them a deposit and tie up the time,
You need a
the
bid.
machine-
As long as it's the company you want to work with.
Right, no, it will have to be somebody that we want to work with. We'll go out to bid still.
Can I
yeah.
ask just a question about?
Just,
Who-
go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
So part of this is supposed to be the reventing of the machines in the Garden Villas. Is that part of this, or is that staff, or where is that going?
That's not part of this price. So we will have to assess that as a separate cost.
Well, we have to have that in your, I mean, we're gonna do it, and it's a
Right.
positive thing. It really is, because but we have to get that price too. Could you make sure you have that too?
It will have to, we will have to get a price for that, yes.
So,
Yeah. Yes, we'll get a price.
So are you suggesting that you go forward and go get some prices right now and?
That's what
go
I'm
forward?
hearing.
Yeah,
that-
That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay.
and
I'm
it's.
going to ask for a
and
motion
it's-
on that in a
and it-
minute.
Okay, and it doesn't come from supplemental, it just comes from the fund, comes from the laundry replacement fund.
Right. Jules?
Steve already said it.
Yeah, yeah. And,
waived the balance of my time.
right, and
Save it
had
for
you and
later.
Steve not said it, I was about to say it. After all this time of waiting, Lynn, go ahead.
Thank you. In all this discussion, I don't remember hearing the word today, commercial. I'm talking about the rates.
Yes, I guess
Commercial
we
dryers.
understood it, Lynn. We're going with commercial
Well,
dryers.
because you've been having meetings behind the scenes, and that's what I'm just saying, I want to make sure that we're talking about the rates. So my question is, the commercial dryers should be faster than the residential dryer, quicker. No?
Yeah, it's heavier
Sorry.
duty.
It just pretends that it's, it pretends.
Okay,
The only efficiency that you'll get out of any different dryer that's electric, not gas, will be in the efficiency of the motor. You have to heat an element with 240 volts, and you've got to get the moisture out of all the clothes until they're dry. Your efficiency goes up with lighter materials and not packing the dryer to death. If you put 15 sopping wet towels in a dryer, you're not going to get any efficiency. It's just, you don't get any additional.
okay, to finish mine up, I'm thinking, okay, if they were going to be more efficient, that 25 cents would be good. 25, it's 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
A quarter for 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
That would be good. The other thing I wanted to say is, you mentioned 6-inch platforms, and Steve said 8-inch platforms,
They're 8-inch.
but we really need 8-inch, because there's a
Yeah,
difference.
that's the only thing they said. We just got 8-inch.
Thank you.
Okay, Lynn, and I don't want to give you the impression that we're having all sorts of untransparent meetings. We had one meeting to discuss surcharges.
That's what I thought it was going to.
That's all we did.
I got
And
you.
I have to hand it to Roy and Steve and Rosemarie. Folks went out and researched this. And so we could have a conversation about how much it was going to cost us,
I know.
you know, and what we could do to mitigate the surcharges
Yeah.
to the residents in 3-story buildings with, or those that had standalone laundry rooms. That's all it was.
I appreciate that. That's
Okay.
great. That's
But
great.
we're trying to keep this out in the open.
I understand,
It's
but I mean,
transparent.
when you said that commercial was understood, I just wanted
Okay.
and see, answering the question about the more efficient, the efficiency of the whole thing. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, Kush.
Make a motion
Okay.
that we move forward and take staff recommendation and buy the dryers and take care of the laundries that we have to take care of in both the 3-story and the.
Standalone, yeah. Do I have a second?
No,
You have you can comment.
want to
do-
change
do-
the motion.
Second, okay, now we've got a second. Now we can have a discussion.
Okay.
Well,
I-
first, Kush and Steve could speak to it. Have
Okay.
anything to say? No? Do you want to say anything to persuade people that you made the right motion? No? Okay.
Lock it
Steve?
up, get the price, get it locked down.
No, I didn't ask you.
Oh.
I asked Kush.
You said
I
Steve
am
and
not
Kush.
cross-eyed.
This Steve.
This Steve. Now Bunny gets to.
I want to modify the motion and state that we're asking them to go out to bid. We're not asking them to buy, because they can't buy until after we award it by the board. So that's all.
Okay, so can we restate the motion?
No,
I don't want to, do we have to go through the amend the motion?
it's an amendment. It's a
Okay.
clarification of.
A
the
clarification.
Also,
second.
Also, our motion includes that we set the rate at 25 cents for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
And also, though, your proposal has to include the venting, because it has to be a complete item.
Right. Okay. So could someone repeat the motion for me? To clarify the motion, would somebody clarify the motion?
You want me to try it?
Sure.
Direct staff to go out to bid and secure the purchase of the machines at this time by, with a deposit, and set the price on the dryers to 25 cents for 20 minutes.
Okay.
But the
Commercial dryers.
For commercial
Commercial
dryers,
dryers on a platform.
On a platform
And
to
including
include
the
venting.
venting.
Okay, are we all clear with that?
All right, that's the motion.
Yeah,
All
we'll-
right,
Are you-
clarified.
Did you get that down, Lori?
Yes.
You're gonna talk to Ernesto after the meeting, I know.
We always do.
Yeah, good, oh, okay, all right. Do you have any other discussion on this? All right. All those in favor of the motion? Unanimous? All right, thank you. And thank you everybody that's worked hard on this, I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate it. Okay, we move on to item number 13. Non-emergency chargeable maintenance services.
Okay, what staff is looking for this afternoon is for you to approve the revised list of non-emergency chargeable maintenance services and the updated resolution that's attached in the report.
Okay, and we're gonna be looking at page 3 of 5, or?
So I'm going to move that we approve this so that we can discuss it. So that's my motion.
Second.
All right, so now I would like to discuss it. I think that, I still believe that there are items on here that don't need to be on here, and I think that there are items on here that should be on here. Ernesto, are you listening? Yes. And I also believe that it needs some clarification. For example, if we're trying to do this as a service to the residents, if somebody has a light like that in their house, and we have a senior citizen and they can't get up to change it, they're afraid to stand on the ladder, they'll fall and break their head, how much does it cost to change a light bulb? No, but it's true. That's what we're supposed to really be going after.
Joke, right?
No, but so the thing, we don't have that on here because we say light bulb ballast service. So I do have a light bulb out in my kitchen. And is it gonna cost me $112 to have somebody come in and I'll have to use a flashlight?
Is it gonna take them an hour?
So I think that we're missing those little easy things that you might call somebody for that would take 15 minutes.
That's a handyman.
But we're not doing the handyman program. But we still have some little handyman things that we could do, and those are not on here. And then we have some things on here where we are not clear about whether it's resident supplied or not resident supplied. Like it says, repair, replace toilet seat. Whose toilet seat? The one I give you?
No, it's ours.
Well, it shouldn't be.
It's all original items, not alterations.
A toilet seat?
Yeah, yeah.
So a lot of people put in low flow toilets. So, and their toilet might have a different configuration, so maybe they have to buy a different kind of toilet seat. So we should get away from this original, we don't have originals, well, we have some original stuff. So, we shouldn't have a lot.
They're supposed to be a little full.
Yeah, so I think that this still needs some, so I think that it still needs some,
Refining.
thank you. He filled in the word refining. So I don't think, tweaking, whatever you want to say. So I think that if we could take it out of this meeting and 2 or 3 people sit down and tweak it and give it back to you, it would be fine. We're not going to drive you nuts.
That will be wonderful, yeah.
So maybe we could have the laundry group move over to tweaking.
Ernesto, some things that we don't understand is when you look at the left column where it says trade and rate, and then you look over the last 2 columns, time frame and estimated cost, it looks like a disconnect, okay? For instance, plumbing, okay, 6551. You're right now at about 6404, I think is what I calculated at the executive hearing per hour. But yet, looking over here to the right, you say a half or 1 hour, okay, you got that. But some of them, like, are a half hour, but it's more than the full rate.
So we'll send that to our tweaking committee. Let's not drive on.
Yeah.
Like water shut-off. Okay?
Yeah,
That doesn't take an hour, it doesn't take a half hour.
There is I believe a $25 service charge as well. It says tag onto this. There's
Added to this?
Why?
Yeah, added
That's your
to
policy.
it. That's in the policy, I believe.
Okay, so
This
it's our
water shut-off
response.
thing is really weird. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Okay,
but-
well, the thing is we should take this away, but at least you put a whole list together. And we'll just have to set up a meeting in the next week or 2 and then get it back to you.
But I have a question on here. I'm on.
You better watch it because you'll wind up being on the committee.
Careful,
So
Bunny.
put your hand down.
Careful, Bunny.
Okay. I mean, because.
Oh, wait, Dave laughed. I think he wants to do it. No, I'm kidding.
Because the question, I'm talking about water heaters. And because the question came up, in regards to is the mutual putting in only 10-year warranties? Well, I done some research in our resolutions and it doesn't say anything about a 10-year warranty. Then I look down at this and it says that there's a limitation, manufacturer provided 10-year warranty. So that's a limitation basically saying that if a resident asks for a water heater replacement, that it has a 10-year warranty. I have not found anywhere in our resolutions that it says that our residents are required to have a water heater for a 10-year warranty. So somehow or another, we gotta combine our or redo or modify some of our resolutions and get a consensus.
Well, there's also the issue of the manufacturers offering 8-year warranties now. Not all of them offer.
7 and 9 too.
7.
Yeah, they
yeah,
vary. They vary.
vary,
You can get the
yeah.
6,
All
you
over
can
the
get a
place.
10.
Yeah.
Well, it's just that what we offer, we should be standard on what we try to offer. I think that's what Bunny's trying to say.
Yeah, I believe it's a 10-year is a very good warranty. Should be offered across the board.
There was one thing which really caught my eye is that we only provide a 30-day labor warranty, which is kind of really lacking.
You better watch it, because you'll wind up being on the committee.
I don't mind because I've been a victim to this 30-day warranty.
Is there, do you have a suggested time? 3 years. 3 years?
But it's not, you see, anything you go and buy has a 1-year warranty.
Not on parts and
Mostly.
labors, no. A new equipment maybe, but
Yeah,
not on
new equipment.
repairs.
If you want, I'll give you a 30-second. I had my shower valve replaced by the Mutual, and 3 months later, I found that it was still making a noise. The plastic cover that sits on the stem started to become loose. So I called, and they said, sorry, it's past the 30 days, can't help you. I said, but it's brand new. I paid for the whole thing. I didn't nickel and dime you. But nevertheless, it never got done. So my brother-in-law was visiting, and we went to Home Depot and bought the exact same thing. But still, we replaced it. It works, but still makes a huge noise. So 30-day warranty is very lacking. I am still young enough to fend for myself and go out and get things done. With the kind of population we deal with, they're up in their age. 30 days is not enough. So that's something you want to look into.
Well, it's direction from the committee. If you want to set your warranty at a hard, again, you end up paying for it. I mean, this is your staff that's going to go out there and make these repairs.
Well, this sounds, I'm hearing all of these exceptions to this. It sounds like everyone's going to have to go back, look at this, and start making your recommendations for updating this. Right now, the motion on the floor is to approve this as it is.
So then I should take the motion back and say, I would like to table this until next month when we have a new one.
Oh,
Yeah.
let's work on it.
Right, so I would like to table this.
I second.
All right, so a second, I know, but you're going to be in charge, so you better watch it. So I table this until next month. So
If
that's
we're-
the motion that's seconded.
I second.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and schedule it when we have the information from you.
You'll have the
So-
information.
Well, it's
in-
incumbent then
We have
upon
to,
the board,
we
the
promised.
board members to
right.
do this.
So we'll have this done within 2 weeks and you'll have it, so.
All right.
So that's the motion and seconded, so we have to vote to table until next month.
The motion that we had and seconded.
Table.
I rescinded
Tabled
it.
it? Okay.
Tabled it. So
That's
we-
good enough.
So tabling it,
Now
so we
we've got
just
a new
have to,
motion
but we
that
have
says-
to, we'd like to
Table.
table it until our next meeting.
All right. All those in favor? Okay.
Okay, so we just have to set up a committee. Roy said he wants to chair it.
We're basically, we're at the end of the open session. I wanted to make one comment. You all got a copy of this list of hot water heaters. It's
great.
Ernesto put together and so kindly did. These are all hot water heaters that are in the laundry rooms. Oh, okay. And they have a certain life on them, and you're going to see they're going to be retired at some point down the road. But if we have, my understanding right now is if we have a hot water heater that goes out or is retired right now, and we need to replace it, we will try to replace it with one of the ones that we've disconnected, if it's still a functional hot water heater. Okay?
What do we being that these water heaters are used in the laundry rooms, do we charge this to the laundry replacement account? If we're doing it for the laundry rooms, I'm not talking about for the garden, the rec rooms. I'm talking about for the laundry rooms. Where do we pay for it from?
You know, that's a very good question, Rosemary. I don't have the answer to that. I'll
It
find-
has to come from a reserve.
Yeah, I'll find out for you.
Goodbye,
I'm not sure.
Raquel.
What is from?
So can we find?
We'll find out for you.
Yeah, I mean, because it would seem that it should come from the laundry replacement fund because it's part of the laundry.
We'll find out.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that, if there's no more business from the open meeting, do I have any committee member comments? If not, I recess this meeting to go to closed session. Let's take a 5-minute break. You want a 10?